we tried to do this. It was like a not a let's play. I don't know what you call it. Where like you're playing a game and then you talk about things that aren't the game, but the. So we were gonna do. It was like me, Paul, Luis, and Vinny, I think, and we were gonna play Torchlight. And then we discovered that Vinny's computer could not play Torchlight. It could
Classic.
go into the first area, but could not load into the second area. And because, like, when you're doing the group play, it won't let you go to the next level until everyone's loaded into the next level. We just sat there for like 20 minutes. Like, man, these loading times sure are long. So that didn't go very well. Speaking of things that didn't go very well, let's
Yes.
talk about our reading of Ulysses.
Yes.
So, just a brief introduction here. Ulysses is a book written by
Wow.
James Joyce, um, who, in my opinion, should never have been allowed access to a typewriter. Um, Ulysses is considered to be one of, if not the greatest work ever written in the Western canon. Probably by the same people who think Ava is the best anime ever made.
Oh, you think that?
No.
No,
Oh.
I think that.
I
I also
am
don't think the former statement.
strongly anti-Ava.
Yeah,
I actually don't
this-
think Ava's the best ever.
I don't think Oxford literary professors even know what a cartoon is. They haven't left the library since 1850.
So then they haven't read Ulysses.
No one has. That's the thing. No one's actually read it.
Well, I gave it a good shot.
Is Ulysses just a speculative bubble?
Ulysses
thinks
is
it's
sort
good,
of
so
the
they keep
literary
hyping it
equivalent
up.
of dialectics.
Nobody's actually read Ulysses to find out that Ireland isn't a real place.
Say as a speculative bubble, I think that's more of the sequel, Finnegan's Wake.
There's a sequel?
No, well, this is also a sequel of
Wait,
a sort.
this is what's this
Yeah.
a
A sequel to what? The Odyssey?
No, there's a character in here who first appeared in Jim Joyce's previous novel, The Portrait of an Artist as a Young Man.
So you
Is that
tell
a
me
sequel or just a crossover?
It's not a sequel, but the character appears in it. It's
Okay.
not relevant to the narrative
The
of the
James
text.
so
Joyce cinematic
what you're
universe.
saying is that I can't blame not understanding the plot on not having read the prequel.
No.
I'm going to do it anyway.
I'm gonna blame everything on that then.
Yeah,
So-
I didn't even know there's a
I'm ready
prequel,
to
so I just
discuss
jumped
it.
right into it.
I've got
You too?
Wikipedia on one side, I got the text on the other, and I got my introduction to literary textbook on my bed next to me.
Do you have the PDF of the annotations?
I can download that.
No,
real
don't.
quick.
That's my job.
I'd say,
Leave
yeah.
something for me.
Yeah.
I have reading for dummies. Does that help?
That's good. That's good. You've got your remedial English textbook.
Yes.
Okay.
I don't know how to read it though, so it's quite the predicament.
So let's just start here with like your name and your thoughts in like 10 words or less on Ulysses. So I'm Alex. I thought that this sure was a book.
I'm Angelo, and I have too many thoughts to count.
How high can you count?
Oh, too much.
I'm Andrew. I didn't actually read it, but I'm here to take questions from the audience, if there is one.
Your moderator.
Brandon, you're up.
All right, I'm Brandon. I really enjoyed so far what I've read. I can't wait to read more.
Axel.
I'm Axel. I joined this channel to play Dota, and now I can't leave.
The captive audience. So yeah, that's a good start here. Let's start with chapter 1. So chapter 1 is not nearly as bad as some of the later chapters in that I had a vague understanding, I think, of what the plot is. But before I go into what I thought the plot was, who wants to talk about what they thought the plot was?
I'll go first.
All right.
Since it begins with Buck Mulligan waking up and along with his friends, and then They start their day. They eat breakfast. They tell jokes at each other and reference literature.
So much. They reference so much literature.
Yeah,
Yeah.
that's a load-bearing sentence.
It's Joyce is kind of like, look at all these things that I know about
Very true.
that you don't, and that makes me better than you.
And there's a couple of these characters, and they're all playing off each other as they eat their breakfast and tell in jokes. And then they go about their day, which involves trying to figure out how they're going to pay for their own breakfast. Because despite being presumably upper middle class, middle class, they somehow can't afford egg. Then they get naked and skinny dip, and then we just sort of seamlessly transition into
Chapter
the
2.
day in the life of the next character, who's a school
Hold
teacher.
on, I'm gonna
I
stop
believe.
you there.
Yeah.
Don't go to chapter 2 yet.
Oh, we've got. Oh, okay.
We're gonna go chapter by
we're just-
chapter, so everyone
we're
can
gonna-
kind of get caught up.
Okay.
So, yeah, that was pretty good.
Now, are they upper middle class, or are they just like, I thought they were sailors. Like, they have the ship and they work on the ship.
So this is actually a great question. I don't know what ship you're talking about.
Can I offer an anecdote from my own life?
Sure.
No.
I'm upper middle class and a sailor.
Okay.
Okay. I meant
You
like,
struggled to acquire egg?
ye salty dog, the lighthouse kind of sailor.
I've been to a
Nice.
lighthouse.
No.
Okay.
So,
Thanks.
Hey.
I thought we locked the channel.
I can't kick him
Nick's
out.
his
He's the
admin.
admin. It's his server. Let's do a bit of a diversion here because the Ulysses annotations actually has a bit of a sidebar on, are these guys poor or not? What's up with that?
Is this like
What is
a
up with
Shadowrun sidebar where it's like 2 pages?
Yeah, it's like 2 pages. But at one point they give Kinch's salary at, I believe, 4 quid and 11 shillings or something. I don't know how
Oh,
British
fucking
money
Imperial
works.
coins.
When the oatmeal lady was listing out of prices, I was like, what the fuck is going on here?
Yeah. So let's see if I can find this here. A note on monetary values. So the question is, how do you convert that much money to today money? Based on just like inflation, it suggests that Steven probably should totally have enough money and is just kind of like in debt because that's how he is.
It's reinforced in the text. The headmaster of the school, tells him that he should save more. So Stephen might just be bad with
Yeah,
money.
his headmaster's like, the greatest thing that any English man can ever say? I don't owe anyone money. Can you say that?
I
And he
paid my
thinks to
way.
himself, like, man, I sure owe a lot of people a lot of money. He
And
owes
it's also
about 7 months in wages as debt to other people. Even though he actually does make a decent enough wage to live off of. Yeah,
He
so
just loves
he's got
the boys.
£3 and 12 shillings. And
Wait, what does he actually spend it all on? Is it horse?
it's
Booze.
mostly booze, I think. Because his
And
friends
rent.
just kind of mooch off of him and like, hey, pay for us to go to the bar. And I guess one man's living wage is not 3 men's drinking wages.
No.
So Ulysses starts with they introduce the boys, Buck Mulligan, whose actual first name is Malachi, and Kinch Daedalus, whose actual first name is Stephen. And then Haynes is like this other guy who they're just roommates with. They live in a
So
tower, not a lighthouse. Why did you think it was a lighthouse?
No, I thought they're on a boat.
You thought they're on a boat.
They're not on a boat.
They're not on a boat. Is it
I
because...
thought-
Did you think gun rest had something to do with boats? Like a gun
I
whale?
honestly have no idea.
Okay.
I thought it was some sort of like fortress.
Correct
something.
pronunciation is Gunnel.
It's just a tower. Like, it's not a fort or anything. It's just a tall, narrow building that they're renting.
But why
It
would
was
it
not a
be
boat.
tall and narrow?
What do you mean, why would it be? Because, I don't know, property, land is expensive. It just is, okay? It's metaphorical, probably.
Why does it have gun rests?
It's a military tower.
Actually,
But-
you know, it probably, like, I bet it was like a decommissioned fort or something. Yeah, because it does have a
Yeah,
gun
that's-
rest.
that's kinda
which,
what I was
I had to look
thinking.
that up. And I got many different answers. But the actual accepted meaning of a gun rest, which apparently was, like, not actually a real word, he just made it up, is like it's a raised platform that you would put, like, a big, like, a cannon on to then be able to, like, turn and move and stuff. So, it's two dudes on top of a tower shaving, 5 feet apart, except I think they are gay. And they're kind of, they're
mean, it says-
vibing, they're bantering, and they go downstairs and there's Haynes, and they eat breakfast, and then the milk lady comes. And then they just
Yeah.
go out onto the town, to the beach, to bathe. They're like, we're gonna go bathe in the ocean. And they just kind of, they do some world building in the fictional land of Ireland.
That no one's ever been to.
I'm pretty sure it's not real.
I mean, especially from Haynes' perspective, who's like constantly kind of being a dick.
Yeah, well, they
Well, one
literally
of them
they
is
start off
English.
with like, man, how long is Haynes gonna be here?
Yeah.
Right? Like, what's
Haynes
the...
English, right?
Yeah,
Haynes is English.
Yeah.
An Oxford man. A very prestigious university,
So he's the gay one.
maybe. They're probably all.
perhaps.
But so the thing that's just wild to me about Ulysses, and anyone that hasn't even like attempted to read Ulysses really misses out on this. Only like half of it's in English.
Mm-hmm.
A quarter of it's in like whatever language Joyce wants to show off that he knows, and another quarter of it is in like Irish street slang, which is like English but not.
Use the same words, but they don't mean the same thing.
Yeah, like, I mean, it's no one talks like this. There's a word that they use, kip, that doesn't like, no one knows what it means. The annotations are like, man, I don't even, what the fuck's a kip, dude?
Kill a pound.
And it's got like, a lot of different meanings, and they're just like, you'll just, I don't know, figure it out. It's kind of, it's like a thing. It's like a dab or a yeet. You know, what's a yeet? I don't.
It's just stuff the youth say.
Yeah, it's just one of those.
We should bring Kip back.
I'm pretty sure it's Kip.
That means we need to decide on a meaning for it, though.
That's right.
We literally do not.
I mean, you have to decide when you would use it.
Just freestyle it.
That's pretty Kip.
Joyce is doing here.
Yeah, Joyce is. He's just freestyling the whole book.
Yeah, if
Yeah,
the
apparently-
author of the greatest work of literature ever in the Western canon can get away with it, I think we can.
Yes.
Here we go. All right, I found it in the annotations here. So Kip has like a whole bunch of different slang meanings. So he does like a fun like double entendre thing that none of us get. So Kip can mean like a thing that is caught, or it can also mean bed, or a
I thought it
house,
was like a fish.
or a brothel. It probably is a fish. And he just says it, and it's up to you to figure out what he means by the Kip.
Mhm.
Um,
So he's doing an entendre on slang that nobody uses anymore.
yeah.
Well, yeah, because this was written a long time ago.
1904, if my
Yeah.
memory serves.
So people used it back then, right?
I don't know. How should I know?
Well, publication, it might have been started in 1904, but it was published in 1922.
Really?
Yeah, I think it was one of those things like a lot of novels back then. They were published serially, like chapter by chapter, in like a newspaper or a
Okay.
magazine, and then bound
The
and
telltale
printed.
approach.
It was a lot more common back then. You usually the most famous example of that would be the works of Dickens, which is why he's so long-winded.
Yeah, he
Uh,
got paid by the word, right? Like a
He
penny
got
a
paid by
word
the
or
word.
something?
Yeah, a penny a word. And that's why there's lots and lots of characters and lots of descriptions that go on and on and on. Uh, and you can actually honestly see some parallels between Dickens and this, in that it's interested in the, I would, common speak and common people of the time, as opposed to a lot of the literature of that came before, which was exclusively about rich people and rich people problems.
Well, that's because most literature was written for rich people, right? Dickens
Exactly.
was like, I'm going to write for the street man.
Yeah,
Who was Joyce writing for? Himself,
I think
right?
himself. Yeah,
Himself, yeah.
Yeah. So let's talk about some themes here. Some allusions. This is full of allusions. Allusions to what? Scholars
Everything.
still debate to this day. Uh, Joyce himself said that it was his intention to pack Ulysses so full of allusions and references that even after he died, people would still continue to argue over what the book meant, thus achieving immortality, which I think is the plot to Serial Experiments Lane.
Something like that, yeah.
Which is similarly inscrutable. So,
But it's far more palatable.
this doesn't have
On
enough
track.
shots of power lines. So Ulysses starts off with our boy Buck Mulligan wearing a robe and coming up some stairs holding a bowl full of stuff, which is supposed to be a metaphor for the Catholic Mass, or so I've been told.
Oh, is that why he says Latin?
That's
Speaks in
yeah,
Latin?
he's quoting a line from the Mass.
Okay.
And then he goes, "Come up, Kinch, come up," which is that's like the
The
call
call.
to come up to worship at the altar. That's the whole solemnly he came forward. He faced about and blessed gravely thrice the tower, the surrounding land, and the awaking mountains. Yeah, he's doing a mass. And that's why
He's making
Daedalus
fun-
is like, stop, bruh. Not because, Daedalus,
What a way to wake someone up.
Stephen, is Catholic, as was the standard for the Irish at the time. And Mulligan is an atheist. As that's not me projecting, right? He explicitly goes like, I don't believe
Yeah.
in God.
Which is
Yeah.
why they have their little argument over the fact that at Stephen's mother's funeral, Black was kind of an insensitive jerk about it because you know there's no life after death. She's dead. Oh well, c'est la vie. Whereas Stephen, the Catholic processing of death is this very, like everything else in Catholicism, is this long series of elaborate rituals to process everything, and so that's a serious offense. Why they have this weird literary fight over toast, and then it gets immediately dropped when the milk lady comes in. It's great.
Yeah. So, but actually, what if I told you that the bowl symbolizing a Catholic Mass actually symbolized something else instead?
Is it an illusion of an illusion?
It is. See, the fake Catholic Mass he's doing at the beginning of the epic is actually a reference to the Greek epics, such as the Odyssey, which would begin with a prayer
called
to
the
the
Muses.
Muses. Because it was mostly an oral tradition at the time, so it wasn't you didn't just pick up the book and read it. You would go to the town square or whatever, and some old bald dude would just be reciting stories, and it would start with like, all right, everyone, we're going to pray to the muse to give me the strength to tell this story. And that's going to be a common thing. The structure of Ulysses is based off of the structure of the epics. the hero's journey. Another example of this is the tower that they live in. They call the let me find it here. Starts with an O. 5
Olympus?
points to whoever can tell me what it is.
Oh, hold on. The Sandy Cove Martello Tower.
No.
Oh, that's the real name. Hold on.
Starts with an O. It's in here somewhere.
Is it Olympus?
It's not Olympus.
No.
Good guess.
Oh,
Anyway, while I'm looking for it, it's a Greek word that means
The
belly button.
Omphalos?
Yeah. What is it?
Omphalos?
5 points to Nick.
can you
Hold on,
type
let me
that
make sure
in
that's
chat?
actually the thing and not just a random word, Greek word that starts with an O.
I think it is. I'll give you the points anyway.
One of Homer's epithets for Ogygia, Calypso's island where Odysseus is stalled at the beginning of the epic.
Yeah, probably.
That fits roughly.
Sounds about right.
Let's pull up the Google here.
It's used as the name for a place in
Yeah.
the beginning of the epics, so
Omphalos.
Oh, there you go.
So Omphalos literally means the navel. But it also just kind of means, in a more metaphorical sense, the center or the hub. And the trope in the epics is that the hero begins somewhere and goes off on a journey or a quest or an adventure and then comes back, and it ends back at where it began. Now the hero a changed man. So presumably they're going to end up back at the tower at some point, I would assume.
Mm-hmm.
Very, very Homerian.
Mm-hmm.
Makes sense.
So they're up on the tower, they're doing their fake mass, and they're shaving, and then they're talking about handkerchiefs, and then they go downstairs, and they meet up with Haynes, and they eat their breakfast. They're eating... Is that fry? What is fry?
I'm gonna go with fried potatoes.
That was my guess. I wasn't sure if that's racist, because they're Irish.
No, I think they're not eating like a stout English breakfast, which involves like 3 sausages,
Yeah, 'cause they're
4 eggs,
in
6
Ireland.
pieces of toast,
The
and a can of
beans, the
beans.
sausage. Beans and sausage for breakfast is a crime, a sin.
Thinking about them. Being
affront to God.
Oh, it's rough. And then they get real weird with the milk lady. And I assume when they're talking about milk that much, I assume it stops being about literal milk and starts talking in a sexual sense.
Isn't she old and syphilitic?
Yeah, I'm not sure if they're mocking her for
I'm
that,
pretty
or
sure,
if they're
yeah, they
just
were.
Or if their standards just weren't
They were
as high.
totally making titty milk jokes.
with the lads.
Just me and the
No.
lads sexually
As we
harassing
do.
the milkmaid.
Up in our
That sounds
tower.
about right.
And go for a nice skinny dip afterwards.
Yeah.
I'm looking for it here. They do a lot of singing too.
Yeah? No idea what those songs are.
A lot of them are just kind of just like, here's just a song that people sang at the time. It doesn't mean much. Here we go. He watched her pour into the measure and thence into the jug rich white milk, not hers. Old shrunken paps. She poured again a measureful and a tilly. Okay, they're talking about titty.
Yeah.
Old
Yeah.
in secret she had entered from a morning world, maybe a messenger. She praised the goodness of the milk, pouring it out. Crouching by a patient cow at daybreak in the lush field, a witch on her toadstool, her wrinkled fingers quick at the squirting dogs. They lowed about her whom they knew, do silky cattle. Silk of the kine and poor old woman, names given her in old times. A wandering crone, lowly form of an immortal serving her conqueror and her gay betrayer, their common cuck queen. A messenger from the secret morning.
Wait, is that seriously the phrasing used?
Yeah.
Yes.
Yes.
I'm reading
Great
from the
sentence.
text right here.
Great sentence.
Check
I'm
page.
not
Check
queen.
page 21 of the
Cuck Queen, not
annotations.
Cuck Queen.
Oh,
Yeah, let me give me a second here, and I'm gonna see if I can put the text on the screen.
Oh, that's fancy.
Oh boy.
You can do it.
I
I believe in you.
Window capture. Get some crop. Oh, how do I crop?
Almost there.
Uh,
You right click and edit the transform.
Transform. Edit transform. But I don't want to type the numbers. I just want to drag.
Yeah, you gotta use the scroll wheel or the arrows.
There's it's not just a crop hotkey or something?
I don't think so, no.
Well, that's kind of dumb. I'll just do this. There we go. So here's our
Brilliant.
text. Yeah. So that's about 100 words describing the old milk lady with her
Yes.
wrinkly fingers and her sagging tits.
And presumably later on, when she's enraptured with the doctor, but not Stephen, and he presumably slut shames her. I assume that's what unclean loins mean, that she's syphilitic. Because that was the one STD they had back then.
Well, the one that they knew.
Well,
See, I thought that unclean just meant like not a virgin.
it's,
Oh, it is
Actually,
literally
didn't they
common
just
cock queen.
didn't they just think that loins were unclean? I think the annotations talk about that.
They do actually.
Saying it's a little redundant.
Nick, you got the annotations up right now?
I do.
You wanna read a passage for us?
I need to find the particular passage about the loins.
Here we go. Page 21 of the annotations.
God, I was just there. Yeah. Woman was regarded as unclean after childbirth and during menstruation, it says.
So her being old, she's probably had some kids.
Or menstruated at least once.
Allegedly.
Allegedly, I mean, we don't
Allegedly.
know.
At
It
some
was-
point.
look,
I've
it
never
was,
seen
it
a
was,
girl in my life, so I
it's
don't
the
know how that
before
works.
times. You didn't know what women
There
were.
we go. All right. Yeah, 'cause
it also
remember-
mentions-
Priests were celibate and could
Mhm.
only be men. And if you
Yes.
had so much as seen a breast in your life, straight to hell, excommunicated on the spot.
Mhm.
So the church doctrine was a little outdated. I mean,
Extremely so.
1904. So maybe it's just
Yeah.
normal dated, but yeah, so they talk about some stuff and then she's like, pay me.
Yes. After they have a bit of bants about the Irish language. And she has a very funny way of adding up the totals. 7 mornings a pint at 2 pence is 7 twos is a shilling and 2 pence over. And these 3 mornings a quart at 4 pence is 3 quarts is a shilling. That's a shilling and 1 and 2 is 2 and 2, sir.
Jesus.
And then they
Yeah.
don't give her enough to pay her, which is hilarious.
they do dine and dash.
Yeah, in their own house.
Yeah.
She's like, that would be. Yeah.
Yeah. So they say they owe her 2 pence. And she's like, time enough. Time enough. Good morning.
Presumably because she's just going to come back tomorrow and get the
Yeah.
rest or something. So, does anyone actually know how British currency works? Because I had to look this up.
Not a damn
It
thing.
mentions
Not
it
off the
in
top of my
earlier,
head.
or the annotations mention it in
So-
one of their sections.
I
There's,
just know it's not a metric currency system at this period of time.
Yeah.
there's the shilling, which is basically $1.
Mhm.
It's actually $5 in that time.
Right. Well,
Yeah.
a dollar in the sense that it's like the base of the currency, right? And then
Oh,
you
right.
have a pence, which is 5. Wait, I used
that
to.
like their
I swear I knew this for like a day.
quid, shilling, and pence. So the pence is like a nickel, nickel adjacent. Um, it's
How many
the issue
pence is in a
is
shilling?
50. Or actually, no. Wait, is it 10? Fuck.
see
Ah.
for the listeners at home,
There's
British
new and old
currency
ones.
was until the Second World War it was this very archaic system that had existed since the medieval period. As a result, it was incredibly complex to deal with, even people who knew the system well, which is why we're struggling to add up
So
which should be small amounts of money.
my understanding is that the banks at the time would just mint their own currency in whatever denominations they felt like. So it was
Essentially, that was how it was before, like, any sort of centralized bank was a thing.
so.
I mean, as I recall, for a while, you could go to markets and stuff, and they would just let you get like temporary money that was only good for that day, and you would do your day trading and go home.
Yeah.
So the pound is 20 shillings. And the guinea is 21 shillings. And it was like hipper, like all the cool kids were getting their money in guineas instead of pounds. Because it was a fashion thing.
You know, I'm just realizing the actual joke that's being played with in Hitchhikers, when he's talking about galactic currencies.
Yes. That is.
Joke is that their money is fucked up and not
How
metric.
Yeah.
many pence in a shilling? Okay, 12 pence to a shilling. And 20 shillings to a pound, or 21 shillings to a quid.
Yeah.
To a guinea.
To a guinea, yeah, to a guinea.
So now what's a quid?
A quid,
This must be how the rest of the world feels when they try to understand our measurements.
Yeah. And the reason we're spending so much time on this is because there's wordplay going on with how she lists out the costs. She's
So,
doing a
what
wee bit of a
is
joke.
a
according
quid?
to Wikipedia,
Okay, so a quid
pre-decimal,
is a
there were
pound. A quid's another word for the
28
pound.
different coins in British coinage. From the quarter farthing to the 5 guineas.
Mm-hmm.
These are all probably produced at different times and go in and out of circulation and stuff, but that's a pretty silly
Yeah.
amount.
It did carry a lot of different change back then, and which is why the cost of this makes no sense, which is why she has to list it off the way that she does, because the math doesn't make sense in a normal way of adding.
Apparently, since 2016, they've had the Queen's Beasts as a coin,
What?
What?
which I'll admit is
corgi.
not how I read that on the first.
If you can get a hold of those babies, then by God, you're the richest man in England.
Which is worth £5 sterling, which is
Sterling
an
silver.
incomprehensible amount of money.
Yeah, 5 pounds of sterling
So
silver.
they owe a shilling and
one,
2
and-
pence.
And 2 is 2, sir. And 2. It's so great.
So that's
And they-
slightly less than 2 guineas.
They
Wait, no.
no.
That's oh wait, pence is, god damn. So a pence is the okay.
So
So, they
it-
abbreviate pence as
A guinea is 21 shillings.
shillings,
and
So they owe
12
2
pence to
shillings
a
and 2
shilling.
pence.
So they owe 14 pence,
Mm-hmm.
or a shilling and 2 pence, and they pay with a florin, which brings us to
Oh,
the next
God.
question. What's a florin?
2 shilling coin.
Yeah, great.
So they're 2 pence short.
Yeah,
And
below
then
2 pence, he said.
wait,
Which again shows the
Stop.
effort that us in 2020 has to go to keep up with this book that was published in 1922, which is set in 1904. This is a very
some
small.
parts of some things are timeless, right? Like the structure of the epic hero's journey. Other things are not timeless, like old
Like-
British currency.
Yeah, like riffing on the milkmaid's tits.
Timeless.
That's
That's you can make that
Timeless.
joke
That will
any day of the
always be
year.
funny.
Weirdly lyrical, which is again how you should be reading this, not as prose as a novel, but like in blank or unrhymed verse. It should be the vibe you should be thinking of.
Yeah, this is poetry. When you read this, you should be reading it like you're trying to read a poem, which means don't even worry about what the words mean. That's
Yeah.
To
irrelevant.
George Lucas accent, it's sort of like poetry. You know, it rhymes.
Yeah, except this doesn't rhyme, which tricks
Sometimes
you
it
into
does.
thinking it's prose.
That's probably my problem. I'm trying to read it as prose.
Yeah, I actually found that having the annotations only makes it harder to get through because you're like, this must mean something, right? Nah. Nah. So here's something fun. So after the milkmaid is like, yo, you owe me some coins or whatever. Buck does this show of like digging through his pockets and then comes up with a coin and sings a line from a song. He says, where is it?
Heart of my heart, were it more, you would be laid. More would be laid at your feet.
Yeah. Yeah, so this is from a song of a guy who's like, I love you so much that I've given you everything that I have. But he's singing it to the milkmaid, yeah, ask nothing more of me, sweet. All I give you, I can give. Like, he's got more coins in his pocket. He just doesn't want to.
Just wants to bum off Steven.
Right.
And then he's like, you got to do this, and then make sure to go get paid today so we can all get blasted at the pub.
Yeah,
So
which
they
they
eat-
mentioned in an earlier section he spends like $200 in a weekend on booze.
So they're just old timey frat bros.
Yeah. No,
Yeah.
they're literally...
Haynes is a college student.
They're-
He's an
yeah.
Oxford man.
I think they're
He's-
all college students. Something like that. Or college, like, they're young bachelors, right?
Yes.
Oh.
Young
Whether or not
bachelor
they're
would be
actually
appropriate.
attending university doesn't matter.
Right about our period of time, actually.
Yeah.
These are relatable
Just-
young adults.
Either just out of college or still in college, but not at college right now.
See, like, I also harass the milkmaid every morning. So I can
And
kind
I
of
live in a
relate to
town.
the text.
Is that a euphemism for something, Alex?
So here's some other illusions, right? Like immediately obvious is Stephen Daedalus is named after Daedalus, that Greek dude, that lived in a tower. The famous architect who so the Queen of Minos was like, I would love to fuck a boar. Not a boar, a bull. She's like, man, I want to fuck a bull.
Yeah.
And so, naturally, the only thing to do is get a bull and let it fuck the queen.
Right.
And then the queen gave birth to a hideous bull monster. And the king was like, I am not happy with this. And made Daedalus build the labyrinth to put the Minotaur in. But then, like, trapped him in the labyrinth. So he lived in like the tower in the middle of the labyrinth, and then he made the wings, and then he flew off, and his nephew was with him. Because like, if you're gonna get trapped in a dungeon for crimes against
nephew.
humanity, you're gonna bring your nephew with you. And then the nephew had the wax wings and flew too close to the sun, and the wings melted, and he fell into the ocean. And Daedalus just made it all the way to Italy, I think, and just
So
lived
wait,
in
was
Italy.
did you just say the tower was inside the labyrinth?
Yeah.
Was
yeah.
the labyrinth like just open to the air?
I mean, presumably it was very high walls.
Yeah, it was really
Yeah.
tall walls.
Huh. Because I
Um,
always imagined it like
A
you know,
dungeon?
like a cave. Yeah,
no,
like
so
a dungeon.
here's a fun fact about the labyrinth too. It was not a maze.
Well, yeah, that I know.
It was a single just really twisty
It's
path.
single windy path.
Because they just figured like the Minotaur would walk in one direction and then eventually get bored, turn around and go back. Except, also, the labyrinth wasn't a spiral; it was a maze.
But they couldn't have just
because in
built a big
another
room to
story
put him
about
in?
it, the one dude that has to go into the labyrinth is given like
the string.
the magic string
Mhm.
to lay his path so that he wouldn't get
That's-
confused and lost. But like,
That-
it's a
Jason, right?
spiral.
Jason and the Argonauts.
I don't know.
But like, they could have just put him in a big room, right?
Yeah, so
That's the
that's
thing
that's
about-
the thing. It doesn't need to be a maze. You could
Right.
use a cage.
Yeah.
But look, who are we to question the ancient Greeks and their
Right.
handling? It's more ethical, right, to put your bull son
I guess
in a
I guess it's like
maze?
an SCP where it gets confused by the twisty passages and is unable to phase through the walls as a result.
Could you imagine ancient Greek SCP?
But it's literally
I mean, that's
it's a
literally
spiral.
Greek
It's a
mythology.
straight. It's a. You just
Yeah.
pick a direction and you keep walking and you'll get out. And they're literally just like, there's no way the Minotaur will ever figure its way out of this.
It's a good
Which
thing
is-
the Minotaur
which is
was not
funny,
educated
actually,
about the
because,
right-hand rule of maze solving.
If we can go even further on a tangent, the maze
Please.
spell in Dungeons and Dragons is
Yes.
clearly a reference to the Labyrinth of Minos. You cast it on a target, and they are poofed away into a maze.
Yep.
And they have to solve the maze.
Mhm.
And there's a discussion about, like, can I just make a maze that's just 1,000,000 miles in a straight line? Does that count as a maze?
Yep.
And like, well, the Greeks did it. Now, the follow-up question is, can I make it a vertical drop that's 1,000,000 miles long? Jury's out on that one, but
So,
like, I
all right,
guess-
so back to
Yes.
back to
British
reality.
Speaking of
coinage.
mazes, Ulysses, which is a maze of literary references.
Apparently, the British had special coins for the Queen to give out on Maundy Thursday.
What the fuck is Maundy Thursday?
You mean Monday?
No, it's the day before
You mean
Good
It's
Thursday?
the
Friday.
day the queen gives out all the special coins.
of course.
Well, England's a fake country, right? They don't actually have laws there.
They don't even know what their constitution is.
Yeah.
They're
All vibes. You just sort of think real hard about what a king
My
wrote in his
constitution's
diary
like an 8.
in 1500. So
yeah, they
it's like,
find things, and then all the constitutional scholars literally have to get together and be like, is this part of the Constitution? I don't know, because their
Too many.
Constitution is literally like a corpus. It's a body of texts, plural. They didn't just
Yeah.
sit down like we did and just write one.
And there's these distinctions between England and Ireland, which is when after they have their weird skinny dipping session. I too like to quote "Thus Brock the Rastra" before I go skinny dipping with the lads in the sea.
So
Maybe we should
Daedalus,
have an IAA field trip to go skinny dipping in the sea just to experience this.
in the snot green sea.
Yeah.
Yes, the Emerald Sea of Ireland.
So that's another. I'm glad you mentioned that because anyone that's ever read Homer's Odyssey in the original Greek is familiar with the line.
I don't think anyone here speaks Greek.
Oh
Well,
no, the sea is wine red,
Well,
wine
that,
dark,
Yes.
wine dark, because the Greeks did not have a word for blue.
epi oinopa ponton,
Jesus.
or
Ah,
something
yeah,
like
that's-
that.
Flawless Greek pronunciation.
I hope the ancient Greeks don't like give us hate mail or anything. Which means the wine
all
dark
those
sea.
ancient Greeks watching this podcast.
Right, because the Greeks didn't have a word for blue.
Or red. They just had light and dark.
Well, they had a couple colors, but yeah, they didn't have blue. So they're just like, yeah, it's dark like wine. So, I mean, literally, this is Joyce. Let me just read this passage here.
Oh boy.
Isn't the sea what Algae calls it? Great sweet mother? The snot green sea. The scrotum tightening sea. Epi oinopa ponton. Ah, Daedalus, the Greeks, I must teach you. You must read them in the original. Thalada, Thalada, she is our great sweet mother. So Joyce is literally like, hey, you need to go read Homer in the original Greek.
Yes.
There's no subtlety here.
No.
Joyce just comes out like they break the fourth wall for a second and go, you gotta read Homer.
Go become a classics major and study for 12 years reading ancient texts, then come back and read this novel, which is told kind of as it happens, like if it's happening in real time. It's great.
Yeah, so after they eat, they're just off to the ocean
Yes.
to go swimming. And they make some jokes about syphilis and mirrors as a metaphor. Which is a fun one. And then they talk more about Daedalus's dead mom. Oh, right.
They see
So
a boat.
I got distracted, but so Daedalus, right? Very clearly a Greek name.
Yes.
But only a true intellectual knows that Mulligan, also a Greek name. So, he actually calls it out, too. My name is absurd, too. Malachi Mulligan. 2 dactyls. What's a dactyl? Isn't that a finger?
Not much
Yeah.
of a dactyl
Thought
with
so.
you.
Yes.
Yeah.
But it
Yeah.
has a Hellenic ring, hasn't it? So, if I can...
Oh, Dactyl is also a legendary being in mythology. In Greek mythology,
There it is.
Is it? What is it?
an archaic mythical race of male beings associated with the Great Mother, whether as Cybele
Oh.
or Rhea.
So, the Great Mother is the
Before we
ocean.
jump in real quick,
When
Yeah.
when Daedalus says
Yeah.
Thalada, Thalada, she is our great sweet mother. That's the ocean.
Fascinating.
Is the great mother.
and to go one level deeper, a dactyl is also a literary term for a metrical foot consisting of 1 stressed syllable followed by 2 unstressed syllables.
Now I assume that when Mulligan says my name has 2 dactyls, that he means here's the stresses of the syllables. But
Yes.
actually, there's a hip reference for you to pick up on. Actually, 2 dactyls means us, 2 dudes associated with the Great Mother, the ocean. See, this is why Ulysses is a timeless classic.
Yeah.
Now,
'Cause it takes the entirety of time to figure it out.
We're all gonna be timeless if we deciphered this.
let me see
Oh,
if
yeah.
I can find the passage here that talks about this, because Malachi and Mulligan both are references to like actual other things, as literally everything in this book is. So Malachi is Hebrew for messenger, is a prophet from the Old Testament. But also sounds a lot like Malachi, who was an Irish king, and Saint Malachi, who was a Irish saint, who also allegedly was a prophet.
All comes together.
It
So how
all
many layers
comes
deep is his name?
together. Now,
5 if I was keeping
4.
track.
so he's a prophet, right? Is what they're getting at. If you know your shit, right?
But what is he prophesizing?
I don't know. I haven't gotten that far. But we can't. You're right. We can't just punt the question. We need an answer. So, who wants to come up? We're gonna pull a death of the author here. That since Joyce tragically is dead, I hope.
Yes,
I
he
didn't
is.
actually check.
You got-
He's no longer here to tell us we're wrong. So,
Oh, this motherfucker's dead.
Wrong answers only. What is Mulligan the prophet of?
The rest of the book.
Okay. Probably.
The author's rests towards the end of her life.
James Joyce is a man.
Okay. And
Well, he's dead, so we can't really check.
wrong answers only. All right.
Yeah.
What is he the? Well,
Now,
now
since
is this wordplay?
steeped in illusion?
Trof.
They
What?
mention here all Ireland is washed by the Gulf Stream, but they actually mean the Gulf Stream 700
The
business
jet.
jet.
He's the prophet of aviation.
Is the prophet of aviation.
Now, since this is all an illusion, we could probably gain some insight by asking, what did the prophet Malachi? What was he prophesizing? Was it a disaster? Was it a great tribulation?
Well,
Was it
you see,
success.
Malachi was actually prophesizing a prophecy.
Dear God.
Good.
Yeah, so Malachi the prophet foretells the coming of Elijah the prophet, who will prophesize the end of the world, or like the rapture or something. Let's see, Malachi 4:5. I'm gonna Google this here. Malachi 4:5.
Oh, jeez, he has a book in the Bible.
Yeah.
Yeah, he was a prophet from the Bible.
Yes.
All right.
We should probably read that too in order to have a good understanding of.
We should probably be good Catholic boys.
Yeah, so this is
in Greek.
This is another, like, you need to have memorized the entire Bible. All right, let's see here.
Catholic Bible, its original Latin.
Yes, that's true.
Malachi 4. I'm going to find the King James version. New King James, Old King James.
Old King James.
Oh,
that would have been the one at the time for Common English. But if they were in Catholic Ireland, it was
here
a
we go.
lot
King
stricter.
James. For behold, the day cometh that shall burn as an oven, and all the proud, and all that do wickedly shall be stubble. And the day that cometh shall burn them up, saith the Lord of hosts, that it shall leave neither root nor branch. But unto you that fear my name shall the Son of Righteousness. That's Son with a U, but probably still means Jesus. I don't really know.
All right, so
Everything
that
Emphasizing
means
destruction.
that he's not just the prophet of aviation; he's also the prophet of anthropogenic global warming,
If only we had heeded his warnings.
or perhaps the prophet of Florida, because it's hot like an oven right now.
Behold,
Yeah.
I will send you Elijah the prophet before the coming of the great and dreadful day of the Lord, and he shall turn the heart of the fathers to the children, and the heart of the children to the fathers, lest I come and smite
transplants?
the earth with a curse?
COVID.
I assume, in the biblical sense, you think there's going to be a time of trouble. But in this time of trouble, another prophet will appear who will bring the nation together. I'm assuming the Hebrew people together, to prepare them through this tribulation, and then prophesizing the arrival of the Messiah, which, depending on who you ask, happened around 0 AD.
In
We
some
don't
cultures,
know.
yes.
Yeah, that sounds believable enough.
Other messiahs are available.
Spot has yet to be filled.
Yeah, can I return this one? I think it's not working right.
Which means, in the context of James Joyce's Ulysses, he might be an omen, like a bad omen. There might be some bad times ahead with this character or our other characters.
Well, this is a hero's journey book, so I feel
Yeah,
like
they're gonna
he's
have some
get
bad
in-
times.
He's gonna get into some shit, and it's gonna break the group up.
But since, it's just some lads who are gonna go drinking, I assume they're just gonna have some. They're gonna I don't know, the 1904 equivalent of drinking the worm.
Probably drinking the worm.
So
Yeah.
we'll conclude our discussion of Chapter 1 here with my
Them in the
favorite
ocean.
passage. Which is the one that made me give up and go find the annotations, because I was foolishly convinced that this would make sense if I knew what they were talking about. He lunged towards his messmates, in turn a thick slice of bread impaled on his knife. "That's folk," he said very earnestly, "for your book, Haynes. 5 lines of text and 10 pages of notes about the folk and the fish gods of Dundrum, printed by the Weird Sisters in the year of the Big Wind."
Is this
All right,
weird,
weird
like
sis-
water weird?
Weird
Nick,
Sisters
you've read the
and
annotations.
bread, that's definitely predicting anime.
Good. Wrong answers only. Who wants to tell me what they think the fish gods of Dundrum refers to?
Kaz, or some say Kazum. Do you have hers?
Now, the actual answer is literally nothing.
He's making fun of Haynes.
This is Mulligan making fun of Haynes by just being
Yes.
like, here's some stuff to put in your book, and then spouting nonsense. So I
Yes.
got the annotations, and I got over here, and I'm like, okay, what's a Dundrum, and who are the Weird Sisters, and what's the year of the Big Wind? And the annotations go, this is all made up.
Yeah, he's making fun of Haynes because we never quite established what Haynes is here for. He's a college student studying Irish folklore. He is literally, in the context of the time, the rich white kid coming into the disadvantaged community to study their folk tales and sell them back to the university.
Yep.
And they're making fun of him with it constantly.
There's
Make fun of
a
his
bit
accent
of an
and it-
exchange that goes on where
Yeah.
So they're in Ireland, right? Everyone's
Yes,
Irish here
they
except
are.
Haynes. So the milk lady comes in and is pouring the milk, and Haynes starts talking to her in Gaelic,
Yes.
and she's like, "Yo, I don't even
French?
know. Is that French?" Like, not only does she not speak the native tongue of her country, she doesn't even recognize it, because the British kind of stomped that out real good.
Tried very hard. It didn't quite succeed.
So it's pretty funny that, like, the one person here who speaks it is the British dude.
Yeah. This is a very high IQ roast of British colonialism.
Yes.
So chapter 1 kind of concludes with nothing of import happening. They shave,
Nothing
they
happens.
eat, they go into town, they swim. That's it.
Yeah.
It's really
Setting
just
the
to
scene.
establish the characters, yeah. And then
Yeah.
chapter 2,
They start talking about Jews too, don't they?
they sure do. Let me
Yeah.
Yeah. They pretty much say that the Jews run England, that they're in the banks and they're in the media and all that.
Yeah,
not
so
much have changed,
Haynes is
in
an
the last 100 years.
anti-Semite.
Also, redheaded women buck like goats.
That
Yep.
is true.
That's yeah. So, could you imagine like having this conversation with your boss? Like, Andrew, you're pretty friendly with your boss at work, right?
Mm-hmm.
Depends on which one. I probably wouldn't have it with like my actual manager, but with my team supervisor, I could.
You'd go in and you'd be like, "Man, those redheaded women, they buck like goats."
Probably not in the office.
Well, all right, yeah, because you go out like drinking with your coworkers.
Terrifying.
I have.
Yeah, and this is after they do a
Now,
little
have you
English
ever
lesson.
drunk enough to start ranting about the Jews?
No, but I'm not typically the type to rant about the Jews.
So, chapter 2 is a flashback of Stephen. This is where it actually establishes like that Stephen is
Yes.
the main character.
Yeah.
And
And is a school teacher.
is a school teacher.
And they begin with, of course, talking about James Joyce's favorite topic, ancient Greek stuff.
Yeah.
Specifically, Pyrrhus, which is where we get the turn of phrase, or Pyrrhic, the Pyrrhic or Pyrrhic victory. And there's which is a victory that doesn't actually amount to much. A hollow victory would be similar. And
Yeah,
there's-
so-
and of course the college kids are like, haha, pier, you mean like the pier that you like fish from? Haha, yes. They're doing a bit of funny because the kid was not paying attention in class. And they're doing some jokes.
Yeah,
and they sort of
so
go on from there.
the history is that there was some war, right?
Hmm.
And there was a battle, and they won the battle, but because of the casualties that they sustained in winning the battle, they were unable to win the war. And the famous quote was, "Another victory like that will ruin us surely." And that's what it means. It's like you won the battle, but not the war. And that's where we get the word Pyrrhic. Yeah. So he's teaching the kids. I don't really know exactly how old these kids are. I'm guessing like high school age.
Yeah, I'm gonna say either secondary school or some sort of weird boarding school scenario.
Because they're sending them out after the lecture.
Play hockey.
He sends them out to play field hockey.
Field hockey, yes.
But
There's some
before
great
he lets them
lines.
out, he asks them a riddle, and I'll ask this riddle to because this is a good one. This is a doozy of a riddle.
Yeah.
boy.
So no one who has actually read the text is allowed to answer. So Andrew,
Okay.
you're up to bat here. You ready?
Hooray.
The cock crew, the sky was blue, the bells in heaven were striking 11. 'Tis time for this poor soul to go to heaven. What am I? Or is it? Or what's it describing?
Hawk crew, the sky's blue.
No matter what you think, there's no way you'll ever get this right. It's great.
Wrong answers. only.
Wrong answers only. Yeah.
The thing is, that might as well be the right answer.
We should make that the title of this podcast.
Wrong answers only. Or the cock crew.
I'm partial to literary society.
So the actual answer, Andrew, you want to guess or are you stumped?
I'll just take a random shot in the dark.
Okay.
So the trouble is, like, I don't actually know, like, what type of thing it's describing. Like, whether, like, it's a person, a place, a thing. So let's... Yeah, I give up. I
All
don't
right.
know.
The actual answer is a fox bearing his grandmother under a holly bush.
Explain?
Uh-huh.
No.
I would love to.
I
So,
legitimately, yeah. When I
uh,
read this with my no annotations, because I did a no annotations any percent run of this.
all right. So what do you think that the answer to the riddle means?
For me, I was going that this was there is no meaning, and this was Stephen making fun of and mocking his students for not paying attention. And at the real class, he's like, you know what? Before I let you go have fun, answer this question. He's just being kind of a jerk to his students.
So you are very close, actually. So there was a. Yeah. So. The actual. This is like a quote of another riddle. That was, riddle me right. What did I see last night? The wind blew, the cock crew, the bells of heaven struck 11. 'Tis time for my poor soul to go to heaven. What's the answer? The fox bearing his mother under a holly tree. And the whole point is that it's a nonsense riddle to just make fun of the kind of dumb riddles that you'd never be able to guess unless you know the answer. And that's what he's doing. He's like, let me ask you all this riddle. And it's a nonsense answer.
Mm-hmm.
So you were spot on, Andrew.
Yeah.
Cool.
And then they go off and they play hockey.
Yes.
And one kid stays in, Sergeant,
The slow kid.
the slow
Kid's
kid.
name is Sergeant.
Yeah,
Cyril
but
Sargent.
it's spelled different.
S-A-R.
Yeah, Sargent. Cyril Sargent.
Sergeant.
And so he had been given some remedial homework to redo his sums that he copied off the board. And so Steven's like, can you solve them yourself? And the kid's like, no. And then we get this lovely description of the kid. Ugly and futile.
Wait. How old is this kid?
High school.
They don't say. I've assumed.
I'm assuming
You
high
said
school.
sums. Like as in arithmetic.
Addition. Yeah.
So it's arithmetic, but they are doing like exponents or something. Let me see if I can find where they actually describe the nature of the math.
While you do that, earlier. It might be he might be. I'm assuming it's secondary school because there's a bit earlier where they joke that Stephen using algebra proved that Hamlet is Shakespeare's grandfather, and therefore he wrote a story about his own ghostly father, and kind of making fun
Yeah.
of Stephen as being an author who thinks too much, which to that clearly is sort of like the self-insert character here. James Joyce has wrote himself a character about a guy who's too smart for his own good, and he overthinks everything. But he's also kind of sad and drinks too much and doesn't know how to keep money. He's kind
Damn,
Wow.
I'm really connected with this guy now.
I'm just going to keep talking until Alex interrupts me with what he's figured out. You can see in this novel the sort of style it takes, pretty obvious from the first couple pages, that even if you didn't do all of the reading, that this is not what you would expect from a book from the early 1900s. Because like 10 years before, we were getting books, Bram Stoker's Dracula or Mary Shelley's Frankenstein or Herman Melville's Moby Dick. That was the type of very overwrought, you could say, Gothic, capital R romantic prose. And here is what we would consider an early of the modernist novel. Modernist, again, not meaning contemporary, just modern in the modern artistic movement.
Yes.
Yeah, there we go. Angelo's found
So
it.
annoying.
Quaint caps of squares and cubes.
Give hands.
So
Give
not real
hands,
exponents,
traverse,
just
bow to
fancy
partner. So
multiplication.
I'm assuming that it's some sort of algebra solve for x kind of deal.
Mm-hmm.
Yeah. So here's the description of this kid. This is where we start to see the stream of consciousness style that Joyce uses much more prominently later on.
Yes.
Ugly and futile, lean neck and thick hair and a stain of ink, a snail's bed. That's a great way to describe your student. Yet someone had loved him, borne him in her arms and in her heart, but for her the race of the world would have trampled him underfoot, a squashed, boneless snail. She had loved his weak, watery blood drained from her own. Was that then real? The only true thing in life? His mother's prostrate body, the fiery Columbanus in holy zeal bestrode. She was no more, the trembling skeleton of a twig burnt in the fire, an odor of rosewood and wetted ashes. She had saved him from being trampled underfoot and had gone, scarcely having been. A poor soul gone to heaven, and on a heath beneath winking stars a fox. Red reek of ray pine in his fur, the merciless bright eyes scraped in the earth, listened, scraped up the earth, listened, scraped, and scraped. I
Kid
have
is just-
no idea where
Yeah,
that passage
I
went
lost the
at
train
the end.
like about halfway through that.
Yeah, I
Mhm.
lost it when you were talking about the scraping.
This kid is sickly, and he's assuming that his mom was also probably sickly and maybe died in childbirth.
I'm guessing his mom's died, but also, so a common theme throughout part one is that Stephen's mom died, and this made him very sad.
As
So
it does.
he's kind of got this obsession with thinking about dead moms, which is weird.
So is this maybe just projection?
Well,
little bit.
it's what it is. He's thinking about this kid, and he's like, man, this kid is ugly and dumb as hell. But I bet his mom loved him until she died. That
Because-
thing that moms do.
Yeah.
Which I'm upset about.
He's got the kind of the Disney princess dead mom syndrome.
Yeah. So his mother's prostrate body presumably is referring to her lying there during childbirth. The fiery Columbanus is a reference to Columbanus, the Irish saint.
Wait, is prostrate do you assume a prostrate position when you give
Back
childbirth? I don't think that's how that works.
Back
know.
then they did.
Did
They,
they?
Really?
wouldn't lie you flat back then.
Huh.
They would put you at an angle.
But prostrate is lying face down.
Prostrate
Yeah.
is specifically
Oh,
on
it's
your
like
knees,
praying.
hands forward.
So probably what she was going for is like this kid is sickly. Maybe she had birth in the street, like she's doubled over in the street or at home, and she wasn't able to have a proper birth.
Dropped him
Who?
on his head.
Hunched
No.
over and like it's all speculation because Steven here is speculating, and Joyce only wrote us about how she was no more, the trembling skeleton of a twig burnt in the fire. And great turn of phrase. A lot of great turns of phrases in this chapter.
It's this is poetry, and it should be read
Yeah.
as poetry. So
Yes.
he helps the kid do his what they call the sum, but I assume is more than just
Algebra.
addition and is actually working out a problem. Doing a maths, as they say. And then he's like, "All right, kid, go get your stick and go play with the other kids because
Yeah.
it's recess or what do they
Yeah.
call it in England?
I'm gonna
Pudding?
go. It is recess.
It's
It
always
is literally
something
they're
different.
taking a recess from class.
Yeah." And then
And there's a little
his boss.
Yeah, there's some other references in there about the reference to the Moors and the Averos. That stuff in Spain. Doesn't really matter much, but it's cool that it's there.
And his boss is like, "Come into my office and talk to me." And so first he pays him.
Wait,
Makes
what?
fun of him.
His boss, his boss is calling him into the office because Steven works as a lecturer or a teacher or a tutor or whatever. And so Steven's boss is like, let me pay you your salary.
Oh, right. Okay. I thought you said Steven paid his boss. I was a
No.
bit confused.
So his boss makes this whole point of having this fancy coin purse. He has a savings box. These are handy things to have. See, this is for sovereigns, this is for shillings, sixpences, half crowns, and here crowns. See? He shot from it 2 crowns and 2 shillings. 312, he said. I think you'll find that's right.
That blackjack.
I'm very confused by British currency because 2 crowns plus 2 shillings is equal to 312.
Good system.
Because I believe a crown is 16. Let's do the math here. So 312 is 36.
Jesus.
So a crown, 2x plus 2y. Damn, I need someone to help me with my sums.
We got to do the linear algebra here.
Yeah, if only.
I'm
Well,
gonna
we had some
I'm
engineers.
I'm gonna pull the Wikipedia page back up here.
You said
British
2x plus
Wikipedia-
2y is 312?
So Wikipedia confirms that after Joyce's mom died, he continued to drink heavily and scraped together a living reviewing books, teaching, and singing.
Literally the equivalent of using like your film degree to become a YouTuber.
Okay, so half a crown. So a crown. What? A crown is
Yeah.
5 shillings.
Mm-hmm.
So 2 crowns and 2 shillings is 12 shillings?
Yeah.
Yeah, I think that's right.
So
'Cause,
weird.
a guinea is a shilling and the other thing, right?
No, a guinea.
Oh, Jesus.
Yeah, a guinea is
It's 21
1 pound and 1 shilling.
Right, so that's 11.
No,
21.
21.
A pound
Oh,
is
20.
20.
Yeah, the denominations go 12, 20,
21.
or
But
21.
Also sometimes 20.
It's great.
So
Fortunately,
2 crowns. Okay, let's work this out here. 2 crowns
they
is
flawlessly segue back to the
10.
text.
So a
We-
crown
okay,
is
so-
5
so
shillings.
2 crowns and 12 shillings is oh, wait a second. He gives him 3 bills. Yeah, so he gives him 3 notes, 2 notes. What? He brought out of his coat a pocketbook bound by a leather thong. It slapped open, and he took from it 2 notes, one of joined halves, and laid them carefully on the table. So 3 notes, actually. One is 2 notes folded up. So 3 notes, presumably that's his quids? His
pounds.
pounds?
Pound notes.
His pounds.
Pound notes. And
And
since this is the before times, before they abolished the gold standard, you had to have metal matching your paper currency.
So he gives
This
him
is
his
why
3
we get
crowns. No, his 3 pounds. And then
Yeah.
in change, he gets 2 crowns and 2 shillings. So that's 3 pounds, 12 shillings. Because a crown is half a
So ridiculous.
I don't even know, man.
A crown,
And
a
then,
crown is 5
fortunately-
shillings, which is half a sovereign. Or that's a quarter of a sovereign, which is a pound.
And then his boss sees him just put all the money in his pockets. And so his boss is like, don't
that.
carry it like that. You'll pull it out somewhere and lose it. Just buy one of these fancy coin purses. And Stephen goes, mine would often be empty. And
And
then
in between that, it's like he goes. There's a brief aside about the symbology of money, symbol soiled by greed and misery.
a lump in my pocket. Yeah.
It's great.
So Stephen's
we
got
get-
a mixed relationship with money
Yeah,
in that he has it and then doesn't have it anymore.
Yes.
An all too common plight.
yeah. Among young people.
See, the money is really a metaphor for his mom, who died, much like how he runs out of money.
He runs out of
That's
mom.
right, Mom.
He runs-
He runs out of moms.
Yeah,
yeah,
a little bit of that save Martha energy coming in here.
so Stephen's like, oh, mine would often be empty, and his boss gives him a
Just
lecture
like
on
many
money.
of his moms have died.
About pulling themselves up by their bootstraps.
Yeah, and then you get this fun passage.
Yeah, I do. Before we get into it, I do like the fact that you mentioned at the start of this, many years ago, that the pride of an Englishman is that he's, not in debt to anyone. Which the thing is, that's a bit of an insult to Stephen, because Stephen is Irish.
Oh yeah. So
Stephen's Irish.
So there's a fun passage if someone wants to read it out of the PDF here that starts at the very top of page 54 with "I will tell you."
Which was his proudest boast. I paid my way. Good man, good man. I paid my way. I never borrowed a shilling in my life. Can you feel that? I owe nothing. Can you? Mulligan, 9 pounds, 3 pairs of socks, 1 pair of boots, ties. Curran, 10 guineas. McCann, 1 guinea. Fred Ryan, 2 shillings. Temple, 2 lunches. Russell, 1 guinea. Cousins, 10 shillings. Bob Reynolds, half a guinea. Kohler, 3 guineas. Mrs. McKernan, 5 weeks' board. The lump I have is useless.
Yep. So he's tallying up his debts here, which I'll spare you the math, sums to 7 times his monthly salary. So he is in quite a lot of debt. I mean, it doesn't sound like that much debt just looking at it. 2 lunches, 3 pairs of socks.
And this is debts not to like a bank. This
No, this
is
is
debts
just-
to people.
Yeah, this is debts to his friends and associates. I assume quite a lot of it is the 5 weeks board, which I believe he pays 12 shillings a week.
To whom for that?
His landlord.
Ah, right. Okay.
That's their rent for the tower.
Right. So that's like the actual important one that he could reasonably face consequences for.
Yeah. I don't think Mulligan's gonna come break his kneecaps over the 1 pair of brogues that he. What's a brogue?
I'm assuming since it's followed by in the sign of socks and ties, I assume like a bit of an article of clothing.
It is a type of shoe,
There we go.
a fancy dress shoe,
Okay, it's formal wear.
or perhaps
Hey, bro,
a
can
more.
I borrow a shoe?
It's a
was-
loafer. It's an old-fashioned loafer.
Yeah.
Actually, I have a pair of these.
Yeah, they're
Really?
they're business shoes.
Yeah, it's just a style of shoe that has well, I guess mine doesn't have the ornate kind of holes in
Frilly
them.
stuff.
But yeah, it's like it's a light brown, usually leather dress shoe. Anyway, I I fear those big words, Steven said, which makes us so unhappy. Which really should be the tagline for this episode. And then they talk about the Jews.
After there's a bit of they talk about Prince Albert of Wales, who, a brief aside, was rumored to have slept
the
with Queen
piercing.
Victoria. Yes, have a Prince Albert, and two, just have an absolutely giant wang. Truly,
Hence needing the piercing
yeah.
to keep it in place.
And then they start talking about history, which is, again, old fogey and Tory, slang for conservative. And they start talking about the Irish potato famine, which is only called the Irish potato famine in English histories. In Irish histories, they consider it a deliberate, it's starving.
It was
Yeah,
the
it-
famine of
it
British
were-
aggression.
Yeah, it was
What happened?
it was literally the British
Yeah.
took all the fucking potatoes.
Yeah, they
The
did.
crop failed. And
It was
England
not
like,
the
well,
potatoes that failed. The potatoes were the only things that didn't fail. It was the grain that failed. So they just took the potatoes from the Irish, and they kind of collapsed the Irish economy.
And then,
and their stomachs.
and then Mr. The headmaster here starts, presumably, blaming the Irish for all this,
Well,
in
maybe.
a sense.
You know, it's funny because like they blame everything on the Jews,
Which
but
I
then they
assume is what
blame
you
this on the
Fenians-
Irish because Ireland didn't have any Jews.
Yeah, it's great. Let's not. We're jumping the gun and on the cool and fun anti-Semitism. We need to talk about the brief aside over unionism versus rebellion, which, again, considering this is set in 1904 but written in 1922, which is after the Easter Uprising. There is some very subtle, and I'm subtle, I assume, but I mean buried under layers and layers of literary bullshit on the nature of Irishness, Irish independence, and the Union versus separatist issue, which Mr. Headmaster quickly sweeps aside and starts talking about the Jews.
Is this union with the British or union in the
Yes.
unionizing sense?
No, the imperial sense of the Union.
Right. Okay.
Boy, they're still talking about that one.
Yeah, if Brexit gets really bad and they put a hard border between Ireland and Northern Ireland, that violates the Good Friday Agreement and the IRA comes back.
Mm-hmm.
So there's another fun thing they bring up before they start talking about the Jews is
Yeah.
that doctrine of laissez-faire, which so
Yeah,
often in
laissez-faire.
our history.
Yeah.
Period. So that's an interesting sentence. That doctrine of laissez-faire, which so often in our history. So often what? Our
is?
cattle
It
trade.
is. I assume he's talking about the. Well, this is 1904. We had probably just started the first child labor laws and the beginning of the idea of national insurance in England. Didn't pass until the middle of the First World War. But the first attempts at reform, liberal with a capital L, as in the Liberal Party at that time. The thing you have to read, folks, to the, I assume, zero watchers of this. You need to brush up on your Irish and English history, and along with their politics. So this is talking about the first reforms of capitalism versus any of you fans of the Austrian School of Economics. Laissez-faire is the who squeaked.
Me, the Austrian in the room.
The Austrian School of Economics, which is the laissez-faire, laissez-faire, the hands-off, unregulated, let the free market decide all the things. This has never gone bad once.
Yeah, it's not like there was a potato famine that came out of that or anything.
Yeah.
Hey, that wasn't laissez-faire's fault. That was the British's fault.
Yeah, that's colonialism's problem.
Yeah.
No, that was the free market raising the price on potatoes.
Above the people who grew them.
Yep.
And so he talks about list of industries, the cattle trade, which becomes relevant. There's a weird thing about foot and mouth disease. I see Liverpool Ring and Galway Harbour scheme. I didn't look it up, but I know Liverpool was an industrial town, and Galway's obviously harbour scheme. Port town, and then European conflagration. That conflagration, folks, fire. European fire. I'm not sure what he's talking about there, but since we're talking about, there's a breakdown in the food supply. just keeps on going about economics and agriculture, and they brief aside to talk about Cassandra when he's like, oh, pardon the classical illusion. Let me bring up Cassandra of Greek myth, and that's going to be the segue to who has the annotations. What is Cassandra?
Cassandra is someone who prophesizes doom and is disregarded. So this is a reference to Cassandra from, surprise, surprise, the Odyssey, who was the daughter of Priam of Troy and refused Apollo's love, and as a result was cursed to speak prophecy and also to not be believed by anyone. So she predicted the destruction of Troy, and no one listened to her.
For the end of all that spiel, he's like, I don't mince words, do I? Even though he just
minced
a lot of
so
words.
many
Yes.
words.
The standard English reference would be Polonius going on a long-winded speech and then saying, I hate to talk too much in Hamlet. He's doing an irony.
There's also a fantastic
this-
phrase in this passage here. The pluter-perfect imperturbability of the Department of Agriculture. Pluter-perfect imperturbability.
Yes.
So
Many syllables.
that's another one that I had to look up. That's just Joyce showing off how many words he knows.
Yeah, he went to thesaurus.com.
So
What is Pluto perfect?
So fun fact, if you search pluter-perfect in Google, the second suggestion is pluter-perfect imperturbability.
It is.
Right.
So pluter-perfect is an alternate form of pluperfect, which means more than perfect.
That's literally French for more perfect.
Yep.
also
Grammatically,
very
it
bad
refers
definitely.
to an action that
Hey,
occurs
Louis is here.
along with another action, or before it. I guess because like the perfect thing is the thing that happens on time, and the more perfect thing is the thing that happens ahead of time. Now, imperturbability,
Yep.
imperturbability means incapable of being upset or agitated. So the pluter-perfect imperturbability of the Department of Agriculture means
The
The-
greatest.
the Department of Agriculture being unupsettable on time.
Yeah.
You know, I don't think that those words actually go together that way.
He might be
But
doing
they
an
sound
irony
good
again.
together.
And I suspect that this is
This is just poetry.
this is
doing
Joyce
irony.
making fun of the boss for using big words the wrong way. And to confirm
Sounding
this,
smart.
I'm going to Google pluter-perfect imperturbability. Pluter-perfect.
And considering the boss is one English, has just made fun of our protagonist for being Irish and poor. Our very good boy here, the boss, quite frankly, might be pulling what we would describe in 2020 as doing a Ben Shapiro, which is talking fast with big words while talking about how great the free market is and blaming poor people for their own problems. Like full blown. This you could put if you put at the beginning, "May I trespass on your valuable space?" Say for the sake of argument. Hypothetically.
Yeah, as far as I can tell, this is just kind of one of those, I'm going to use big pompous words.
Yeah.
Have fun. So then they start talking about foot and mouth disease and
Yes.
some ways to treat infected horses. So while they're having this conversation, the boss is typing out this letter that he wants Stephen to take to the newspaper to get printed, that has some sort of thing about what we need to do about this foot and mouth disease.
The thing you'd make your teacher do, not a courier.
Yeah.
He's a dick.
My cousin, Blackwood Price, writes to me, it is regularly treated and cured in Austria by cattle doctors there. They offer to come up here. I am trying to work up influence with the department. Now I'm going to try publicity. I am surrounded by difficulties, by ... intrigues, by ... backstairs influence, by ... And then
Good sentence. Do you want to read the sentence, or do you want one of us to do it?
I would love to read this sentence. He raised
Okay.
his forefinger and beat the air oldly before his voice spoke. Mark my words, Mr. Daedalus, he said. England is in the hands of the Jews. In all the highest places, her finance, her press, and they are the signs of a nation's decay. Wherever they eat up the nation's vital strength, I have seen it coming these years. As sure as we are standing here, the Jew merchants are already at their work of destruction. Old England is dying. Dying, he said again, if not dead by now. So,
Certainly didn't mince words there.
No.
it's,
I cannot believe that this novel from 98 years ago literally has a rich old professor saying the Jews are destroying the country, we must reject modernity and embrace tradition.
so, for a little bit of
Western
context, right?
civilization.
As we're probably
And
all
Europa.
aware,
So dumb.
people, for most of, like, Western history,
Yeah.
have not liked the Jews on account of they weren't Christians.
Yeah.
So, and everyone was just kind of sort of like, those Jews, what with their not accepting Jesus Christ as their personal Lord and Savior.
And murdering him.
And then the Holocaust happened.
Yeah.
And after
Good
the
times.
Holocaust, everyone kind of looked around and went, ooh, yikes, maybe we shouldn't do that a second time.
Maybe that should have stayed in the draft, sis.
And then, not a good look. So we kind of realized that maybe acceptance of casual anti-Semitism, not so great.
Yeah.
But
Then we forgot
1904, the Jews had never been genocided on a large scale, only many small-scale genocides, which could be easily overlooked.
Yeah.
So they kind of present what's his name?
Mulligan, the atheist.
Yeah. So Mulligan's atheism is just kind of presented as, that's just his idea, and we gotta respect it. And Haynes and the boss, being anti-Semites, they're just like, some people don't believe in Jesus, and some people hate the Jews. Which is funny, actually, because if they hated the Jews primarily because they were not Christian, but
Yeah,
then
they're
they go, what's okay? Not being Christian.
Yeah.
As long as you're not Christian because you're Jewish, then we've got a problem.
Yeah.
But yeah, they're just like, he's old and that's just how he be. And to be clear, Joyce does not agree, right? That he doesn't present this as a man speaking the truth.
No.
It's a guy going, I'm trying to get doctors to treat our cattle foot and mouth disease, and I'm surrounded by difficulties and backstairs influences.
Dog whistling.
The Jews. Yeah, because the Jewish cabal is trying to get your horses sick.
Yeah. So they can control economy or whatever.
And
you can hear the modern version will be the triple parentheses. It's incredible.
yeah. So
that's how timeless this novel is.
It's so funny because Joyce uses a bunch of ellipses, right?
Yeah.
So I'll just I'll post a screenshot here in book club, so those of you that don't have the PDF open can see this.
You should put it on the screen.
Replace those
Yeah,
by parents.
I'll try and get it up on the screen here. Nah. Read the book. Yeah, exactly. And it's really funny because it's like that's the dog whistle. They're right. He's like, I'm not I'm not gonna say Jews, but like you and I both know that we're talking about the Jews. And then he just goes full mask off and is like, the damn Jews.
Yeah.
And then Daedalus kind of calls him out and is like, a merchant is one who buys cheap and sells dear. Jew or gentile, is he not? So he's kind of like, what do you mean Jew merchants? Is it the Jews' fault or the merchants' fault? Like,
Clearly, the problem is actually capitalism.
He's doing dialectics.
And
See the social problem.
they
of
sinned
dead
against the
cows.
light, Mr. Deasy said gravely, and you can see the darkness in their eyes, and that is why they're wanderers on the earth to this day. Which
Is a
brings me to
reference-
my favorite literary trope, the Wandering Jew.
Yeah.
Which you're like, dude, Wandering Jews, that sounds cool, right? Until you actually,
Yeah.
know what it's talking about. So, for those of you, actually, I'll hand this off to someone else here. Who else is familiar with the parable of the Wandering Jew?
Not I.
It's
Nope.
I only aware of it in bits and or pieces.
Then
I might
I'll
be getting it confused with
I'll
other
take
things,
this one.
so-
So,
Yeah, explain it to the goy out here.
there were some boys that you may have heard of, Cain and Abel,
Mhm.
Oh, right.
and
this.
one of
Okay.
them hit the other with a rock,
Yes.
and then God showed up and was like,
Don't do that.
"Where's your brother?" He did not say, "Don't do that." He said, "Where's your
Oh.
brother?" And Cain goes, "Am I my brother's keeper?" And God is like,
It's like your shit,
"Bruh,
gang. I'm God. You can't lie.
I watched you do it. Why are you lying? So, he curses Cain. Now, remember, this is pre-Jesus, right? So they're Jews. Old Testament, it's all Jews. So Cain is cursed with immortality. He is denied entry into heaven. And because Jews do not actually believe in hell, fun fact, that's purely a Christian thing. There's life and there's afterlife, and you die and you go to heaven, or you get stuck in purgatory for a while. But you don't go to hell. There is no hell in the Old Testament. So, no hell. Where you stuck? Earth. So, forced forever to wander bearing the weight of his sins, poor Cain. And this is kind of, it's a trope that's like up there with like the big nose and the money grubbing. That's just like a metaphor for the Jews not dying and instead sticking around being evil.
Oh shit, we got Chris in here.
Who? What?
Morgan in the chat. Oh, Luis in the chat. Oh, that's old Chris.
Yeah,
Oh.
the one who was in the sun.
Yeah, you guys don't know him. Well, Nick does, but
We're doing a surprise podcast guest in the first episode. Wow.
yeah, we went to high school with him. Hey, Chris, how's it going?
The bot clip. in
Shut
the
the
sun.
Don't
Oh.
mention that.
Actually, no, he wasn't in that.
No, he was.
That was the
that
other
was him.
guy. Anyways.
Anyway,
Yeah, and then he keeps going.
on
about
the steps
Jews.
of the Paris Stock Exchange, the gold-skinned men quoting prices on their gemmed fingers. Gabble of geese, they swarmed loud, uncouth about the temple, their heads thick plodding under maladroit silk hats. Presumably that's the kippah or the yarmulke. Not theirs, these clothes, this speech, these gestures. Their full, slow eyes belied the words, the gestures eager and unoffending, but knew the rancors massed about them, and knew their zeal was vain. Vain patience to heap and hoard. Time surely would scatter all. A horde heaped by the roadside, plundered and passing on. Their eyes knew their years of wandering, and patient knew the dishonors of their flesh. And then Stephen goes, "Who has not?"
Yeah.
Because Steven's just like, bro, what are you even saying?
Yeah. Like what merchant hasn't bought low and sold high, and who hasn't, yearned?
Yeah. Who amongst us has not yearned?
Like had a bad time. Great.
Uh,
And then he comes the great quote: "History," Stephen said, "is a nightmare from which I am trying to awake."
me too.
Great line, which
Can't
again
wake up.
emphasizes that this is a modernist novel. The whole point of modernism was to reject tradition, embrace modernity.
And then you
Um,
hear the boys cheering because they scored a goal, which I think is metaphorical because the boss is
he
like,
dunked on him.
those Jews sure are evil, right? And then Stephen's like,
No.
aren't we all? And then a goal is scored and everyone cheers.
Oh,
And yeah,
it's great.
he's dunking on him. And that's pretty much it. They talk a
There's
little
a-
bit, and then he gives him the letter, and then Mulligan leaves,
Yeah,
or
a few more
Stephen
Greek
leaves,
references.
and then the boss runs after him, and is like, "Yo, I gotta tell you the funniest joke you'll ever hear." Brandon, you want to do the honors on this one?
That page is that on
Page 64. Starts at the tippy
64.
top of 64.
Right. Let me scroll down there. "I wanted to say," he said, "Ireland, they say, has the honor of being the only country which never persecuted the Jews. Do you know that? No. And do you know why?" "Why, sir?" Stephen said. "Because she never let them in." A cough ball of laughter leaped from his throat, dragging after a rattling chain of phlegm. He turned back quickly, coughing, laughing, his lifted arms waving to the air. "She never let them in," he cried again through his laughter, as he stamped on gaitered feet over the gravel of the path. "That's why." And then comes Joyce coming in with the one shot, one kill, with the sentence: "On his wise shoulders, through the checkwork of leaves, the sun flung spangles, dancing coins."
Yeah.
Basically, it's like, you are all about, oh, the Jews are controlling the money. You are the one with the fancy pocketbook, the safety deposit box, the money purse, the lecturing people on money, the hoarding.
Yeah.
It's like,
So
basically saying, no, you're projecting all of your bad stuff with money onto the Jews, who are, quite frankly, in the late 1800s, early 1900s, are having a time.
yeah. What with the pogroms and whatnot?
Yes, this in 1904, when the book is set, the Jews had just been genocided in on all the territories held by the Russian Empire.
Yep. So the pogroms were uh 1880s and 1890s, in
And
which they just kind of started lynching all the Jews
yes,
in Russia, which kind of
After
pushed them
publishing-
all out of Russia and into the
Yes.
rest of Europe. Many of them ending up in Germany, which then led to the rise of German anti-Semitism, which
Yes.
led to that thing that we talked about before, the Holocaust.
And moreover, 1904, I believe, was either the year of or around the time of the Dreyfus affair in France, which was a massive international scandal. Like, this was like the Watergate scandal of its day, where a French officer, Mr. Dreyfus, who was Jewish, was accused of being a spy, and they're put him on all these trumped up charges. And they did a monkey. I'm not sure what the term for a sham. They did a sham trial, and they banished him to an island, which is a punishment you did back then. And then
That wasn't Australia, was it?
no, this is French. So I think it was a small island in the South Atlantic.
Was it Corsica?
It might have been
Because
Corsica,
France owns Corsica.
but I don't think it was Corsica, because Corsica is like a nice holiday
Oh yeah,
island.
it's a nice island. Was it
It might have
Where
been the
was
same
they-
when they banished Napoleon.
Yeah, where did it started with an S, didn't it? But it wasn't Sardinia.
It's Saint something.
Yeah.
Whatever,
Anyway,
it's an island. So there's again the more fun anti-Semitism.
I long
and
to
then,
one day be banished to an island for my sins.
which is the thing is, so that's yeah. So there's in 1904, violent acts of anti-Semitism would have been around and contemporaneous. So Joyce here is calling this cooked out English instructor headmaster, and while Steven is just owning him with just basic human empathy, which is great.
Yeah.
And then the scene just ends.
Yeah, end scene.
End
And
scene.
oh man, do we get another scene. So this is where Joyce goes full Evangelion,
Yeah.
and no one
Instrumentality
knows what's
has been
going on
achieved.
anymore. And he
Pretty
just
early to do that.
well, this is the end of part 1. Part 1 is only 3 chapters. So he cranks up the references to other things.
Mm-hmm.
He goes full stream of consciousness. I'll just start reading here. Ineluctable modality of the visible. At least that, if no more, thought through my eyes. Signatures of all things I am here to read. See spawn and see rack, the nearing tide, that rusty boot. Snot green, blue silver, rust. Colored signs, limits of the diaphane. But he adds in, bodies. Then he was aware of them bodies before of them colored. How? By knocking his sconce against them, sure. Go easy. Bald, and he was, and a millionaire. Maestro di color que sano. Limit of the diaphane in. Why not? Diaphane, a diaphane. If you can put your 5 fingers through it, it is a gate, if not a door. Shut your eyes and see.
Yeah.
What?
This is Steven
Yup.
on the way to the printing office at the newspaper. He's doing just the sort of flashes you get when you're just sort of looking around a street.
Yeah, so this is him going through the town on his errand, and just the thoughts that he thinks just kind of are popping into his head.
So,
Thoughts and the feelings. Yeah.
according to the annotations, colored signs does not actually refer to colored signs. It refers to an Irish educator, philosopher, and bishop of George Berkeley. I'm just going to skip his first name because I don't know the pronunciation. Who argued that we do not see objects as objects, but rather we see colored signs and take these to be objects.
Hell yeah.
Which
Sure.
that's got to be the fucking allegory of the cave, right?
Yeah.
Mm-hmm. To an extent.
Yeah,
Just
so and then there's the
Irish.
then he was aware of them bodies before of them colored. How? By knocking his sconce against them. Sure. So knocking his sconce against them.
Bumping into them, I assume.
Yeah. So there was
Yeah.
Dr. Samuel Johnston got in an argument with Bishop Berkeley, and Bishop Berkeley was like, he tried to prove the non-existence of matter and that all of reality is ideal. And then Johnson kicks a rock and goes, I refute it thus.
So good.
Just
so,
like- Reality doesn't exist. Punches you.
and then
Does
so
that
they,
not exist?
yeah. So you've got
Yeah.
diaphane, meaning translucent, and then you've
It
got
says right here that it means opaque.
diaphane means
No,
translucent.
the A diaphane.
Diaphane means opaque. Yeah. So
Gotcha.
these are the things, and then if you can put your 5 fingers through it, it is a gate. If not, a door. So,
Yeah.
according to the annotations here, this is a parody of Dr. Johnson's manner of definition in his Dictionary of the English Language.
Yeah. We got dictionary jokes, folks. This is a deeply nerdy book.
Door is used of house, and gates of cities and public buildings, except in the license of poetry. So he's like, yeah, this is just some dumb arbitrary distinction. And then
But this is poetry.
it sure is. He starts to talk about the Neichenander and the Nebeneinander, which are
Jeez.
the mediums of art and poetry. So, shout out to the annotations for explaining this one. So the Nacheinander is German for one after another, and it refers to poetry and the spoken word and song and the like, in that the elements are temporally arranged. So when you have a poem, you've got the first line, and the second line, and the third line, and so on. As in contrast with the Nebeneinander, which is the side by side. That is to say, visual elements arranged spatially next to each other. So you look at a painting and you're like, there is the apple next to the orange. And this kind of... See, people did a lot of thinking back in the day because they hadn't invented masturbation, so everyone had too much free time.
Yeah.
And some dude was like, I will develop the philosophy of the nature of art. And concluded that the visual arts are those in which the elements are arranged spatially. And the poetic arts are the ones in which the elements are progressive, one after the next.
Temporally,
right. Why is Steven thinking about this? I don't know.
basically just letting his mind wander.
I can only
He
assume.
walks.
And yeah,
Remember,
he thinks
This
about...
is a scene describing a man walking from one place to another place.
Crush,
And,
crack, crick, wild sea money. Domini Deezy kens them, eh? That's just the word, eh. A catalectic tetrameter of iambs marching. No, a gallop. That's a poem thing.
Poetry. Yeah.
So he's just thinking about art as he walks through the town.
The rhythm
And then
of the city, the rhythm of poetry. We're getting it together here.
remember that whole thing where his mom died and this upset him? And now
Yes.
he's got an obsession with dead moms. So
Yeah, it is.
he sees a pair of midwives hanging out on the beach. And one of them has a bag. Like me, like algae coming down to our mighty mother, number one swung lordily her midwife's bag, the other's gamp poked in the beach. From the Liberties, out for the day. Mrs. Florence McCabe, relic of the late Patrick
Yep.
McCabe, deeply lamented of Bride Street. One of her sisterhood lugged me squealing into life. Creation from nothing. What has she in the bag? Question mark. A misbirth with a trailing navel cord, hushed in ruddy wool. The cords of all link back, straight entwining cable of all flesh.
What the fuck?
That is an Ava reference, right?
Probably.
Yeah.
Yeah, so he just sees
Florence?
two midwives on a
Yeah.
beach, and one of them has a bag, and he's like, I wonder what's in the bag. Maybe it's a miscarriage. Like,
Jesus.
dude, maybe you need to see a therapist.
Therapy wasn't invented yet.
I
in
get it. You
1904.
are upset that your mother has died.
What do you mean? They had lobotomies then, right?
No, that wasn't into the fifth. I mean, no. Freud did not publish his dreams and their meanings until after this. Like, modern psychology as a science, not as just, I'm going to stick you in a building and, like, put a bucket on your head and tell you not to feel bad.
Like that for a very long
Have you
while.
tried
arguably
praying?
Still is.
Yeah. Have you tried praying your insanity away? We're
Have
just
you
gonna.
tried not having syphilis.
Will you
Have
be
you tri-
as gods? Gaze in your omphalos. So again, he's talking about them belly buttons. Now this time it's in the context of like the belly button because he's thinking about like
Umbilical cords.
an umbilical cord, a trailing navel
Yeah.
cord. Omphalos being the navel, but also like this is just Joyce being like, haha, see the navel thing? Because like we're wrapping up part one and we're getting back to where we began.
Mm-hmm.
And then it just kind of keeps going.
And
He thinks about Eve being naked, which is a sin. She had no navel. Gaze,
Again.
belly without blemish,
I'm gonna pause
bulging
you.
big, a buckler of taut vellum. No, white heaped corn, orient and immortal, standing from everlasting to everlasting. Womb of sin.
And he's thinking this after I think, just made a phone call, which has put me onto Edelville Aleph Alpha Not 1. Yeah, he's making a phone call or a telegraph, and then he's gone. I'm going to think about Adam and Eve and wombs.
And how Eve didn't have a belly button.
Yeah.
Have you ever seen that subreddit?
I'm concerned now.
I'm trying to remember what it was called,
Is
but
it-
there's like this one subreddit. What?
Is it a subreddit where they just Photoshop belly buttons out?
I
Is it a
think
subreddit
so.
where they try not to use any E's.
But I think it was like it was belly buttons, but also like nipples and just genitals in general.
Oh, Tumblr.
So, give them like the Barbie doll treatment.
But Barbie dolls had belly buttons, I think.
I didn't know. I didn't play with girls' toys.
Yeah. Can someone confirm for us? I'm gonna hang on. Pulling out the old Google.
I mean, we're already on a watch
Belly
list.
button. No, wait. I know what a belly button is. Barbie doll. No
Yeah.
clothes.
Yeah, while he's looking about that, we're gonna keep going. And he talks
you
about
12?
sin and darkness.
I
and about
Nick,
the
if
nature
there's
of God.
clothes on them, I can't see if there's a belly button or not. All right.
Talk about the Holy Father.
As far as I can
and
see,
Christ.
Barbie dolls do not have belly buttons. Actually, some of them have belly buttons. I guess the older
Oh.
ones didn't.
They
Yeah.
hadn't invented belly buttons by then.
Some of them definitely. The new ones have belly buttons because
I
I
think
guess
it's
they realized that
very
children
Catholic.
didn't need to be ashamed of their navels. And then we
Yeah.
get
That's very modern thinking.
my favorite passage from
Yes,
all of
speaking of shame,
Ulysses.
it's very Catholic.
Wombed in sin, darkness I was too, made not begotten. By them, the man with my voice and my eyes, and a ghost woman with ashes on her breath. They clasped and sundered, did the coupler's will. From before the ages he willed me, and now may not will me away or ever. A lex eterna stays about him. Is that then the divine substance wherein father and son are consubstantial? Where is poor dear Arias to try conclusions? Warring his life long upon the contrans magnificand jubangtantiality. Ill-starred heresiarch in a Greek water closet he breathed his last.
Hang on, what was that word
Euthanasia.
before?
Contrans magnificand jubangtantiality?
What the fuck?
I'm
What does that-
so glad you asked. So
Also, before you go off on that, I did find the subreddit I was thinking of. It was actually two. One is r/no tits,
okay.
which is all no nipples or belly buttons, and then the other one, which is bizarrely somehow weirder, is r/test tube babies. I strongly do not recommend this one.
Noted.
I
Why
strongly
would you
recommend
bring
avoiding
it
Reddit.
up?
Avoid Reddit at all costs.
Because the idea of someone without a belly button reminded me of r/no tits.
I see. So let's talk about the contrans magnificand jubangtantiality.
Great name, great word.
Whatever the hell that means. Let me see if I can find the
A lot at
annotation here.
once.
Yeah, so it's not a real word, in case any of you were wondering. So yeah, here we go. So he kind of just took a bunch of Catholic buzzwords and smushed them together. So consubstantiality is the nature of God being the Father, the Son, and the Holy Spirit. And then there's transubstantiality, which is the concept that
Holy Communion.
the Son is over the Holy Spirit and the Father is over the Son. That
And
is
also
so these are the two different natures
Yeah.
of
God.
the Holy Trinity, right? Are they one being or are they three?
the answer is yes. Explaining the triumvirate is extremely hard to people who just don't come from a Christian background. Explaining that aspect of God actually makes you sound like you were saying the word contrans magnificand jubangtantiality just casually. It makes you sound like a crazy person. And another aspect of transubstantiation and Catholic belief, that is where Holy Communion, when you take the bread and the wine, that literally becomes the actual physical flesh and blood of Christ after you eat it.
Oh,
So that's
after you
exciting.
eat it.
Yes.
I thought it was like when the priest blesses it.
No. It has the power when the priest blesses it, but like he holds the wafer before you eat it, and it is not a piece of Jesus's skin. You can see that substantially. So after it is consumed, it's in between mouth and stomach, it becomes literal flesh and literal blood. That's where you get the joke that Catholics are cannibals of their own God, which makes Catholicism sound way more metal than it actually is. It's mostly actually just being bored for 3 hours every Sunday.
Wait, 3 hours?
Mass.
How long is your fucking mass?
3 hours.
I'm joking. Like a wedding mass or a Christmas mass can go that long.
I mean, sure.
Yeah.
Now you've got, so that's your
Con and
trans, and then you've got magnific, which,
Yes.
according to these annotations here, is a reference to Magnificat, which is the song that the Blessed Virgin Mary sang, and then also just like magnificent. And then Jew is a reminder that the Son was born of a Jew and rejected by Jews. See, you'll notice they didn't say is a Jew, because see, the Catholic Church was like, Jews are bad, right?
Yes.
So in order for them to not also say Jesus is bad, they had to kind of just be like, Jesus is an honorary Christian. So, and then bang, according to the annotations here, suggests both the controversial origin of Christianity and the sustained controversy over Arianism, whatever that is. Also, whatever, I don't really know how you get that out of bang, but, you're not supposed to think too hard about that word. It's just kind of supposed to be like, he took the Catholic words and put them together. Because
Yes.
he's just thinking about, like,
God.
And then, in a Greek water closet, he breathed his last. Euthanasia. So this is a reference to, what's his name?
It's when they murdered Aristotle.
No, it's not Aristotle. It's, Arius. So, basically, he was, like, excommunicated, and then he came all the way to Constantinople in 336 to, be like, please un-excommunicate me, and do a confession of faith, and then the emperor ordered the bishop to do his Holy Communion on the following Sunday, basically lifting his excommunication. And then, before that could happen, he died. And he died specifically of a hemorrhage of the bowels. So he was just taking a dump and just kind of shat out his organs and died. And so, when a guy who has been excommunicated, right before being unexcommunicated, dies in a hilarious and gruesome fashion while taking a dump, everyone kind of was like, man, that sure means that, like, he must have been a heretic and was smoted by God. Which, like, fair assumption, right? Like, if you're gonna die from shitting, not even on your own toilet, but in a public bathroom, that's not a good look.
Yeah.
And then...
And again, this is just him having some thoughts while making a phone call, trying to get some weird anti-Semitic dog whistling essays from his headmaster to the newspaper.
So, I like your interpretation with the phone call, but he wasn't making a phone call or a telegram. The Alpha Aleph 001
one.
thing. No,
It's like
that's just him thinking about
Book of Genesis.
Genesis, yeah.
Yeah, I saw it now. Edenville. It didn't register to me as the Garden of Eden. Just it's England. They
You
name
just thought he
places.
was placing a call to Edenville? Yeah. I mean,
and then he
fair.
was being smart, saying using Aleph and Alpha as like AA, and then 001. Like, I don't know. That's the phone code. I don't know. England's a very strange place, or in this case, the English making Ireland into a very strange place.
Look, we've spent like an hour trying to work out how their coins worked, okay? So I would not at all be surprised if their
If they
phone
used
numbers were equally weird.
Oh yeah, they are.
They are. They have a non-standard amount of digits depending on where you are. There's a great video about it. I'll link it to you afterwards. But we have been
Okay.
going for more than 2 hours now.
Yeah, so we
We're
are
so close to the end.
we're making our way through chapter 3 here. Much as he is making his way through town, and he's just like he's picking up some dialogue, and he's hearing people talking about things, and I assume that the events that he is seeing as he walks through the town are gonna be things that happen in the other parts of the story, I imagine is what they're gonna get at. And then he ends up at the beach, if I recall correctly.
Yes, he does.
Um,
After Walter welcomes him.
and then this was like, so when I first read chapter 3, I was late. I was like about to go to bed, getting some reading in, and I'm like, I thought I was having a stroke or something. But the one thing that I did actually get out of chapter 3, my first reading, was that there's a dog. There's a dead dog.
Yes.
And then there's an alive dog who sniffs the dead dog. And then the guy like calls the dog back and then gives it like a gentle kick because he's like, don't be sniffing the dead stuff. And then the dog pees on a rock.
Huh.
Which naturally gets some flowery language, right? Because everything's got to have the flowery
Weird.
language. Let's see, where is it?
Breezing through a lot of this. There was a whole conversation at, like, I think it was a coffee house.
I got the impression that he was on like a train, or no, they're thinking of that someone talking about someone
train.
being on a train, thinking about naked women, something.
As you do.
Were they inventing the metaphor that Hitchcock used in North by Northwest, or like right before the man goes and kisses the woman, a train enters the tunnel, and it's like, haha, yes, I get it. And there's he goes to a coffee house, talk about things. He has more conversation like they had at the breakfast, so layered with literary references, foreign languages in this case.
Make some
French.
reference to Nietzsche and like Zoroastrianism,
Yeah.
and then the dog sniffs the dead thing, and then the guy, the owner of the dog, is like, out of that, you mongrel, and then gives him a blunt, bootless kick, sent him unscathed across a spit of sand. So they make it very clear that although the dog was kicked, it was not a harmful kick, and was just like a nice, gentle, peaceful kick of the dog, as
Is
you do.
bootless to mean with like he's not wearing a boot, or like is there a reference to the amount of force used?
I'm guessing bootless means he's barefoot.
Yeah.
And then, along by the edge of the mole, he lolloped, dawdled, smelt a rock. Period. And then the sentence continues with an uncapitalized and. From under a cocked hind leg, pissed against it. He trotted forward, and lifting again his hind leg, pissed quick short at an unsmelt rock. The simple pleasures of the poor.
Okay.
It's so great.
And then immediately Stephen goes back to thinking about dead mothers.
Of course.
His
they
hind
buried
paws
there.
then scattered the sand, then his forepaws dabbled and delved. Something he buried there. His grandmother.
issues.
And then they start talking about Egyptians.
Yeah, I wasn't sure if they were actual Egyptians, like Egyptian merchants
The
from
Red
like
Egyptians.
the British colony of Egypt, or that's a way of saying gypsy. And they're talking about Roma people. You can check the annotations.
Yeah, I'm looking at that. It's
What
hard
was
to.
the actual word used?
The Red Egyptians.
Huh.
So the problem is that the annotations assume that you have a specific printing of the book, and it references it by page. Or it references it by line number. But
Oof.
I am
Like you
not
would
counting
poetry.
lines here, so I don't see an annotation about the Egyptians.
I mean, you might be talking about actual ones because there's a bit before it's like about how was he awaking from a dream? Then he talks about Harun al-Rashid. I am almosting it.
Yeah,
That
I
man
think
let
he
me
actually
spoke.
is just seeing some Egyptians walking by with
Yeah. Stuff.
wearing some bags and some like shoes and trousers. Bus her whap in rogues rum lingo for oh my dimber whapping Dell.
So good.
A she fiend's whiteness under her rancid rags.
It's awesome. That's what. Yeah.
Starting to read like fucking Alice in Wonderland.
Yeah, not a bad point
She
of comparison.
trudges, schleps, trains, drags, tracines her load, a tide westering, moon drawn in her wake. Tides, myriad islanded within her, blood not mine, Oinopa ponton, a wine dark sea. Yeah, he's just thinking things.
Yeah.
Thinks about vampires, and then
Is this just an entire section of free word association?
Yes.
yes, yeah, the
You're
entire
inside a
chapter is
man
stream
who
of
is-
consciousness.
Who was doing some free association while walking.
And then,
That's great.
of course, he thinks again about his dead mom. His lips lipped and mouthed, fleshless lips of air, mouth to her moomb, all wombing tomb. His mouth molded, issuing breaths, unspeeched, ooh, ha, roar of the cataractic planets, globed, blazing, roaring way away, 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 away.
I'm now just imagining like this guy walking down the street making weird faces as he voices.
Yeah, just flapping his lips and going oomba woomba woo.
The thing is, I definitely have been in this sort of situation. There have been some times at the supermarket where I'm thinking to myself, and my lips are moving, and then I kind of get real into it, and then I start whispering louder and louder, and then I realize,
Until
oh,
you're
God,
just
I'm the guy-
chanting in the
I'm the
grocery
guy
store.
whispering to himself in low tones in the middle of the Walmart. Yeah, there's going back and forth between religious stuff with St. Thomas Aquinas, more Odyssey stuff. His weird obsession with the moms, like Alex said. He's making sounds. Again, staring out at the ocean, yearning, I guess.
He does a lot of yearning. He thinks about being touched.
Yeah, don't we all? In this time of coronavirus.
I don't even
Bishop
remember
of
this from when I
Cloyne.
read it here, but here's another
The
fun
veil.
passage. In long lassos from the cock lake the water flowed full, covering green goldenly lagoons of sand, rising, flowing. My ash plant will float away, I shall wait. No, they will pass on, passing, chafing against the low rocks, swirling, passing. Better get this job over quick. Listen, a four-worded wave speech. See, su, hers, ursis, oos. Vehement breath of waters amid sea snakes, rearing horses, rocks. In cups of rock it slops, flop, slop, slap, bounded in barrels, and spent its speech ceases. It flows, purling, widely flowing, floating foam pool, flower unfurling. So he is just going like full slam poetry here.
We interrupt this novel we interrupt this a lyrical epic to bring you how you teach fourth graders about alliteration.
And then he watches them haul a corpse out of the beach.
Does
Yeah.
this
Or out of the
inevitably
water.
lead to him thinking of his dead mother again?
It sure does.
Who could have seen
And
this
then,
one
and then we
coming?
cut to the opening sequence of Twin Peaks.
Oh yeah, this is just Twin Peaks, ain't it? Yeah, so they haul a dead body out of the ocean. In chapter 1, when they're at the beach, they reference someone had drowned, and there's like this belief that when a body sinks into the water, it'll resurface in 9 days, which is like probably roughly true because like as it decomposes, it starts to
Float
bloat and
phase.
fills with gases,
Yeah.
float up. So yeah, 9 days maybe. I wouldn't know. I've never tried it. So presumably this is like 9 days later from chapter 1 or whatever, and so now he's watching them haul up the body, and that makes him start thinking about death, which makes him think about his mom who is dead, and that makes him sad.
Yeah, I do
And,
like the
and then
line.
he realizes that he lost his handkerchief.
Yeah. I do like the line, God becomes man, becomes fish, becomes barnacle, goose becomes featherbed mountain. Dead breaths I living breathe, tread dead dust, devour a Uranus awful from all dead. Hauled stark over the gunwale, he breathes upward the stench of his green grave, his leprous nose hole snoring to the sun.
I like the part where it goes, of all the glad new year, mother, the rum-tum, tiddly-tum, Lon Tennyson, gentleman poet.
He's making fun of Alfred Lord Tennyson, the poet.
And then he
Very
goes, I should go to a dentist.
Which is in the middle of that.
Yup. Yeah.
That's actually a relatable thought. Just thinking like, oh shit, I should do an important thing.
For the old hag with the yellow teeth, and Monsieur Drumont, gentleman journalist, my teeth are very bad. Why, I wonder? Feel, that one is going too. Shells. Ought I go to a dentist, I wonder, with that money? That one. This. Toothless Kinch, the Superman. Why is that, I wonder? Or does it mean something, perhaps? My handkerchief. He threw it, I remember. Did I not take it up? His hands groped vainly in his pockets. No, I didn't. Better buy one. And then, in the dramatic climax, he wipes his booger on a rock.
Yeah. He laid the dry snot picked from his nostril on a ledge of rock carefully. For the rest, let look who will. Behind, perhaps there is someone.
End scene.
Yeah, yeah. He thinks he sees someone's in the darkness. He sees a boat, and then that's it.
Yep.
It's great. And then we cut to a completely different character, another time, another place.
Leopold. Yeah, I'm not gonna get too into part 2, chapter 4, but just to give you guys an idea of what you can look forward to, Mr. Leopold Bloom likes to eat organs, especially the kidneys, which taste like piss.
Huh.
Also, you get to see some weird onomatopoeization of a cat meowing.
How does it spell it?
MKGNAO. Meow.
Yeah.
I mean, I know that
No.
like
Meowing in Irish.
I know that like GN and KN both are like can be silent, so he's like, what if I put KGN?
It's,
Just a word that is almost entirely silent letters.
MKGNAO. Yeah.
Yeah.
So yeah, that's part 1 of Ulysses. And what a wild ride it's been.
Yes. Final thoughts from the people who didn't read it. What are your impressions of the book so far?
Do you feel like you missed out? Are you sad?
No. In fact, I'm glad. I much prefer having it learning about it this way.
It's fun. It's Ulysses is a fun experience.
It is.
Yeah, you just treat it like poetry, and you
You don't have to take anything literally. You can just literally make up your own meaning on the spot.
yeah, because remember, even the greatest literary scholars ever still argue about what the heck this stuff even means. So if they don't get it, neither do you, and that's okay.
Yeah.
Become big.
What?
Like, what what caused this book or this literature in particular to take off as literally important?
Well, Joyce was already a successful writer at the time.
All right.
And so part of it is that it was notable for rejecting the romantic traits of literature. We kind of touched on this at the beginning
Yes.
of the podcast, but so
This is my area of specialty.
Yep.
Uh,
Mr. Arts degree.
Clunk. I have an associate in arts degree. Yeah, this is like I said, this is one of the hallmarks of transitioning into the modern novel. We get stream of consciousness from here, which you would see in several other works, particular if you remember from high school English class, the works of Faulkner. I'm not sure if you guys had to read any Faulkner. Rose for Emily, Absalom, Absalom.
No.
I think
No,
I've
okay,
read
nobody-
some of it, but I don't remember any of it.
A little bit. This book was very influential on American authors as well. And again, this was sort of like the first book that was written like this. It's, as you can kind of tell by this part one, it rejects the traditional form of storytelling on its first appearance, right? You don't have this very clear and clean 5-act structure, which is what they would have been working with back then. They didn't quite distill down to the 3-act structure we use now in a lot of contemporary fiction. It was very lots, and like the flowery language was used to describe like the torture artist as like this deep, sad thing. Think like Frankenstein's monster in Frankenstein, or any sort of Byronic novel. The sad tortured artist withering away in their geniusness. Another example from a pulpier source would be Phantom of the Opera. That's a romantic, capital R, romantic, not like lovey-kissy genre, just the romantic period.
Yeah.
I'm sorry that these terms like mean more than one thing and get confusing if you're just sort of talking about it. Because like
I understand romantic as in romanticism.
yeah, because like yes, this is a modernist novel. Modernism is from the early 20th century and is not modern in the modern sense of modern.
But
It's
also,
very
beyond
Because
just
time
being,
moved on.
beyond just
Yeah.
being kind of advancing to a
Yeah.
new style, it leans heavily on like the pre-romantic works.
Yes. classicism.
So it's incredible because not only does it reject modernity and embrace tradition, it invents a new second modernity to also embrace.
Yes. But again, yeah, it rejects that in one type of tradition and another type. Like Stephen here is not the brave warrior king Odysseus coming home from a war to get back to his wife, like struggling for 30 years to just try to get to his wife, and so he can grill or whatever. He just
He's
wants
just
to
a
grill.
guy bad with money.
Yeah, this is just
No, our modern epic hero is a school teacher who thinks too hard, has mommy issues, and is really kind of not of a great guy.
yeah.
But he also isn't like the tortured artist of the romantic period where he's dark and brooding. Stephen doesn't brood, right? Like he has weird sad boy thoughts, but he doesn't like have existential dread over them. They're just sort of there.
Yeah, he
and
just
then they
thinks
go.
about his mom being dead, and
Yeah.
but he's like, man, my mom sure is dead. Speaking of things that I've lost, my handkerchief's gone. Better buy a new one.
Yeah.
Yeah, it is actually relatable in
Yeah.
that way.
It is taking literature.
He's
It's
just-
sort of the mixing of high and low culture, which was more of a thing back then. I think we're only a few years out from Champ putting a toilet in an art museum. No, that was 1911. This published in 1922. Yeah, so we're in that very early period of let's just get fucking crazy.
It's set in,
Set in
1904.
Published in the early 20s.
It
was
serialized beginning in 1918, ending in 1920. So,
Yeah.
I mean, set 10
it's a-
years in the past is not a stretch, yeah.
Yeah, and it's very interesting because, like, it's also you have to think post-war Europe, a broken nonsense mess. here comes a novel that takes the sort of ancient BS that like these empires were built upon about tradition and strong men doing the right of the will to assert their big penisness over the Serbians or whatever, and just saying like, nah, it's just lads. Society, it's all just lads, going down to the pub, knocking a few,
Yeah.
being broke.
So Ulysses
Yeah,
kind of came out during like peak Dada era,
yeah.
which for those of you who aren't familiar, basically,
Familiar.
um,
Famiglia.
so there was this thing you might have heard about called the Great War, also known as the
Yeah.
War to End All Wars.
That didn't end all wars.
And it happened, and it was
That's
really
spoilers.
bad, and lots
And
and lots of
pointless.
people died, and basically a bunch of artists were like, I have seen the horrors that mankind is capable of, and this is not a world that deserves beauty. No, we shall make ugliness. And they just kind of made art that made absolutely no sense. They would,
Yes. Wear funny hats and then read nonsense poetry.
there was a guy who, like, drew a chair and then labeled it table or something like that, and it was like, art.
Yeah.
Posting.
They would literally, they would just draw, like, nonsense scribbles and just
That-
put words on a page, and
They would.
Drawing a chair and calling it a table. That is something that would get posted on like r/me IRL.
They would like make music, but by just snapping violins in half, or by just going up on stage wearing a. There's this one guy who's sort of like the head of the Swiss Dada. He would wear this weird cape thing that made him look like a beetle, and then he would just sort of yell things from a stage and say he was performing music.
so,
This is
and yeah,
great.
and Dada was also similarly, like, throwing all of the conventions of the past into the trash, and from this we got a lot of, like, surrealism and postmodern art, that so the influences continued on. And although I would not call Ulysses a Dadaist work,
no.
it definitely, there's some similarity in just the
Yes.
rejection of norms and the like the disregard of rules. You'll see that
Yeah.
he'll put punctuation in the wrong places. He'll put a
Yeah,
period in the middle of a sentence. He'll deliberately misspell words. Makes up a whole lot of words. And yeah, so it was a product of the times where they're kind of like, I just realized that you can just kind of do things. No one will stop you. And so Ulysses happened.
Yes. I'm excited for next time. I am hearing people dropping out of the call, so I assume podcast over.
So the question is,
Yes.
do we want to read chapters 4 through 6? I'm
How many
down
parts
for
are
it.
there total?
18,
So there
24.
there's 3 parts. So we are 94 pages in this PDF out of 1,300.
Oh Jesus.
But these pages are very big because this is meant to fit on a phone. So
Still only 94.
it's long. It's a long book. Not nearly as
I
long
don't-
as Atlas Shrugged.
Yeah. The book did have some pushback. I'm looking here at the Wikipedia article. Virginia Woolf, another of the modernist authors, for example, one of her famous works is To the Lighthouse, which is a story about people who are at a house and then they go to a lighthouse, and that's it. That's the novel.
Much like
The-
Ulysses, which is a novel about some guys in a tower, and then they leave the tower.
Yeah. And she stated Ulysses was a memorable catastrophe, immense and daring, terrific in disaster. She's like, it's terrible, but it's a great spectacle, right?
Oh yeah. The
Uh,
other thing that's notable about Ulysses is that it's the most banned book.
Really?
Yeah. So
What?
yeah.
well, because it
Not
talks
secular
about
book.
like being gay. I mean, it doesn't
Yeah,
talk
and-
about being gay, but it has some characters that are gay. It talks about how like Catholicism is kind of dumb, so it got banned in Ireland. Oh no,
In
it
what
didn't get.
era?
It did not when it came out, 1920s.
Oh, right. Okay.
It did not get banned in Ireland. Um, actually, because
censored.
it was never sold in Ireland.
Yeah.
But it got
was
banned in
canceled.
England. So when it first came out, also it's got some sexual content in that it has people thinking about sex. It was banned for being obscene. They did some mass book burnings, and then after the book burnings failed to stop people from reading it, because here's the thing: in order to burn a book, you have
gotta
to
buy
buy the book, and the bookstore doesn't care whether you read it or burn it. It's off the shelf, and the publishers are just going to make new ones. So they banned it. They banned it in Canada. They banned it in England. They banned it in America. About a decade later, they unbanned it because, I mean, there's not a lot of basis to ban books, at least under U.S. law.
Yeah. Because books were definitely considered protected speech by then, unlike movies, which were not considered art.
Still crazy to me that we're still fighting for that sort of shit.
Yeah. But like the thing is with Ulysses, right? There's no point in banning it, right? Because it's so dense that the casual reader is not going to get to the point where they're going to be too confused.
You are not going to corrupt the youth with this book.
No, there's zero chance of a 15-year-old discovering this and becoming, no, serial killer or whatever they thought Dungeons and Dragons was going to make kids do in the 80s.
Satanist.
Yeah, they're going to make them worship Satan after they read a book where many things happen.
I don't even know what things happened. I just know that things happened. That's as far as I was
Yes.
able to get.
Awesome.
Is there a movie adaptation of this?
There are
There is.
several adaptations.
According to the Wikipedia, there's a 67 film version, which nominated for Academy Award for Best Adapted Screenplay, and there's a 2003 version, boringly titled Bloom.
Huh.
It also got several theater adaptations.
Yep.
Not surprising.
It got
Audiobook.
some abridged and unabridged, like radio readings, and the like.
So, I found the Wikipedia page for Ulysses, the
So great.
1967 film, and
Mhm.
I scroll down, I see the cast. I'm like, okay, and it lists all the characters and there's Wikipedia pages for each of them, and I mouse over Leopold Bloom, and it gives the image in like the mouse over. It's just a fucking sketch.
It's a pencil drawing, yeah.
Yeah.
By Joyce himself. That is Joyce's official artwork of Leopold Bloom. It's just kind of a guy with a mustache and a bowler hat.
All right, hang on. Now I have to figure out how to get this on the stream. This is too good not to share. All right, let's see here.
Let this be the closing image
Oh wait,
of
I can
the
just
podcast.
okay. I got on my desktop and I go image.
None of the other characters have drawings.
Yeah, well, he's the only one whose appearance is very important.
There's a private car. Is there a private Whammoo and ACDC?
Okay, yeah, here's the one. All right, there we go. All right, up on stream for everyone to witness in its beauty.
Are you sure about that? Yeah, there it is up in the corner.
Yeah.
You can put it right next to really fast. Yeah. And that's Ulysses, the part one. Fun was had by all. We will maybe come back next week if we can herd all the cats. Don't anticipate a part 2 of this, audience. This is likely to end up an orphan project like many a podcast.
All
But if it does
podcasts should
happen-
end after episode 1. The world would be a better place if they did.
But see you guys
Hey,
next week.
Morgana's here. Hello, welcome.
Are you still doing book club?
Yeah.
We just
We
finished.
just
We're wrapping up. I'm desperately trying to wrap up here.